results in the past in BSL. He's kind of a staple of BSL. He's a strong player. I think he's probably, I think it makes sense to rate him a bit above someone like Voddy. Dandy kind of, you know, in the past has been painted as like one of the best non-Korean players, but as of recently, I don't know if he doesn't play as much. I don't know what the deal is. I know personally, I mean, I know for a fact Dandy has played a decent amount this season. He has a couple of accounts. They're all kind of higher rated in the 23-2400 range. So I know for a fact that he's been playing, but now does that mean that he's back to his like relatively high skill level compared to the rest of the non-Koreans? Who knows? And Laabuela, I feel like, is probably a sleeper here. You know, we don't see much of him we haven't seen much of Laabuela just in tournaments, but whenever he's played, I feel like he's had good results. And he's basically got an all Terran group, so he only has to practice one matchup, and PVT is a good matchup for Protoss. So I feel like literally anyone can make it out of this group. I think probably the least likely to make it out is maybe someone like Voddy, but he's very close to everyone else. And you know, first game is going to be SPX versus Voddy, so we're going to actually get to test that out and see if Voddy can prove me wrong. That he's really strong TVT, so and SPX is also very good at TVT.
Yeah, so okay, our first match is going to be SPX versus Voddy. You know, I talked about Oyaji being a dark horse of this tournament, but a few seasons ago, I really thought SPX was going to be a dark horse. I think he may have made round of 8. Yes, round of 8 in BSL season 7, 8 and 9 in the top 6, or 8 in top 16. BSL 9 top 22. Meanwhile, Voddy, this is his first appearance in BSL, and we did see him in Race Wars, if I remember correctly, where he had really sick harassment with vultures, and I played him on the ladder pretty recently, and he had pretty good positioning in when we played, and TVT is all about positioning, so if he can get into good positions while also harassing, or just harassing, which may open up the or the opportunity to get into a good position, like outside of the bridges of circuit breakers, for example. You know, it's really hard to bust a Terran that's just sitting on tank mines. So I think this should be an even matchup. I personally favor SPX a little bit, just simply because he's played in BSL and I'm more familiar with him. But Voddy, when I played him on the ladder, like literally maybe like 10 days ago, he was really, really good.
Yeah, and I guess it does come down to whether or not SPX has been playing. I mean, we're kind of giving SPX the benefit of the doubt here because he is such a seasoned veteran. But to be completely honest with you, I haven't seen him on ladder. I haven't seen him streaming. I haven't seen him anywhere really. So I think maybe SPX. I don't know how much he's been playing. If he hasn't been playing though, I think Voddy would be a clear favorite then. So at the end of the day, guys, it really comes down to sort of whoever's been practicing the most, I feel like, so as it should be. But this first game, I feel like, is going to at least set the tone for this group, and it's going to give us a bit more insight into just how well all these players are playing. Now, it's the best of one. TVT, best of one. I mean, there are some weird builds you can kind of whip out. There's some stuff you could go for crazy, like 14 command center. You could go for 8 racks. You could go for 2 factory. There's a lot of stuff you could throw in, like in a best of one, but it is the least volatile matchup.
Yeah, TVT generally, you know, it's pretty much a vulture war in the opening stages, unless somebody wants to opt into one fact, one port, and try and, you know, go into a positional type game. So our first map, again, of course, is going to be Eclipse. It is going to be SPX versus Voddy, and we'll see who's going to be moving on into the winners match of our Group F, or Group E, actually. So in the top right, in the brown, by the way, this is live, I think, because there's no unit bar. It is Voddy. Or no, it's not Voddy, it's SPX.
Yeah, and in the bottom left, the up-and-coming Swedish Terran player, it is Voddy. And I'm excited to watch Voddy play. I'm excited just in general to watch up-and-coming Terran players play, or just Terran players in general, and new Terran players especially. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity for Voddy to kind of prove himself. I think he can definitely make it out of this group, without a doubt. I mean, I know maybe I don't consider him as a favorite in this group, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did make it out. I think this group, it probably is pretty close at skill level, except the obvious outlier might be Dandy. But again, we don't know just how good he is in his current form, and even SPX, we don't know how good he is in his current form. So looks like both players are going to go at least for not an 8-Rax. So no crazy shenanigans, though. This SCV is coming out really fast from SPX. I don't know if it's going to be to put a forward Rax. That's the most likely thing, but it might just be a really fast scout.
And this is going to be a forward Rax. I'm going to float it. You know, in the olden days of TVT, players didn't build Marines. It was almost like if you built a Marine, you were behind. Well, actually, it's not going to be a forward Rex because he's instantly scouting. And generally, when players do this, it means that they're going 14 command center. But because SPX has already built the barracks, I would assume that this means he's going to go gasless. But as I say that, I see he's sent the SCV up to his geyser. And you can see he hasn't taken it yet because he wants to evaluate what's going on. So it is going to be a gasless response from SPX. And the scouting pattern is very weird. Usually you do go 14 cc if you scout this fast, but overall gasless is a standard follow-up. I know that you've been playing gasless recently. You didn't seem to be a big fan of gasless, so what do you think are the downfalls of gasless?
So in general, gasless is such a high variance build. If you pull it off, you're ahead. If you don't, you die most of the time. On this map specifically, the ledge at the natural is actually really good for the player that's attacking the gasless. So, you know, next to the natural, there's this big hill, and you can build a bunker. You can siege up tanks behind it, and they can just siege command centers. As we try to go into an FP view, but not quite set up just now. But we'll get that working for sure. But that's the thing. How do I feel about it? I think gasless in general, I don't think it's that good of a build. I think the thing with gasless is that it's the execution required to punish it is much lower than the execution required to defend as gasless. But that being said, if you can pull off gasless without taking too much damage, you can be in such a good position going into the mid game. It can allow you to really beat players that are much above your skill level. So kind of just a very high variance build, I would say.
Well, we'll see if SPX can pull it off. I'm kind of torn between gases. Looks like there's a couple of Marines gonna deal some. Oh, that's a proxy factory at top middle. So this is gonna be a 2-fact follow-up. And I'm kind of on the fence with gasless because I play a decent amount of pro gamers on the ladder, and they end up going into gasless, and it feels like I can't touch them. I mean, I can't touch them in general, but I'm talking in the early stages of the game. They just run me over. But then I'm like, okay, well, I'll copy gasless, and I go gasless. And then I die to something like what Voddy's doing right now, which is setting up a massive contain. And Voddy doesn't necessarily have to breach the natural with this. All he has to do is make sure that SPX can't get out. That's a win condition in TVT, is just starve them out. So if he can bust the bunker, that's great. But if SPX ends up going into siege mode and just sitting on the high ground, there's no way he's going to be able to bust in. So I think Voddy should just consider sitting outside the nat, literally just sitting there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes if he has to. First tank coming out, SPX did scout it with the SCV, so he knows what's coming. He also saw there's no natural, so he knows this is one base play. He just has to determine, is it tank Wraith, or is this some type of huge tank Vulture Goliath contain?
Yeah, Voddy interestingly went for that second add-on on his proxy factory, which doesn't really make much sense to me unless he's just choosing not to go for siege mode, which I don't think is good at all if you're gonna 2-fact. I think the proxy factory in general, okay, he actually does get siege mode. I was gonna say the proxy factory is actually completely worthless unless you're making tanks from it. So I think he actually got that add-on. Hopefully it's so that he can start tank production at his proxy factory, and he makes vultures from his main base, which I think is exactly what he did. So very smart move there. I really like this from Voddy. And at this point, did he push too fast though? Because SPX is pulling all his SCVs. He got one tank already, and he still has one tank of his own. And honestly, this is a disaster for Voddy. He really kind of lost a tank for free. And that's huge here, because now SPX is going to be on 2 tanks versus 2 tanks soon if he doesn't lose his tank. And if you're on equal tank count, I mean, you can just siege the other guy out. Now, SPX is losing a lot of SCVs, but he does have a lot of SCVs more to work with because this was gasless. They're both in range of one another, and Voddy actually unsieges, unfortunately, because he just needed one more shot to kill that tank. Re-sieges in range. If he gets this tank, I think this is basically all but over for SPX, because, okay, one more tank on the high ground. If this tank actually might be able to get both the tanks, but it doesn't, that was so close. The SCVs are going to clean this up. If this one tank goes down, this game is absolutely over for Voddy. He's going to be so far behind. He needs to keep this tank alive as his second tank is coming. This is really close, Nyokin.
Yeah, this is perfect defense so far from SPX. This is one of the downfalls of Gasless is SCVs. They are super tanky, and comboed with even just one tank and a handful of Marines can be super dangerous. Tank falls down. Now there's 2 Goliaths out fighting a tank. Tank should win this fight, but reinforcement advantage for SPX. But with a Goliath coming out, he is going to actually be able to take out the Goliath, save his tank, but maybe not, because that tank is about to get bursted down. And now Mass Repair actually manages to save that tank for SPX. And now that SPX has gotten, well, it looks like a decent position on the map, he also has his racks here to scout for vision. He's in a, I think he's stabilized, and he's going to have his NAT up and running pretty soon. He did send the SCVs there, and now Voddy is just trying to transition into the mid game, but his tank count is extremely low.
Yeah, and this is exactly the kind of situation that I was talking about, where, okay, hold that thought, SPX does not want Voddy to get a contain and even, so he's going to pull the SCVs just to get in range. Nicely executed here from SPX, going to kill that tank. Oh. He's going to kill the Goliath also. This is really good for SPX, trading units off, but not losing too many workers. He needs to send those SCVs back. So I was going to say well, there's 2 things I was going to say. One is that this is exactly the situation Gasless wants to be in. Defending like that, even if you lose SCVs, you're so massively ahead, especially when the other player commits to kind of delaying their natural. So at this point, I mean, SPX has a pretty significant advantage. The other thing is, I was going to say maybe Voddy can work to essentially play to a contain, use his early pressure to mount a contain up and kind of play positionally from there. But SPX won't even let him have that. So now SPX basically is going to go into his 4-fact, maybe 5-fact if he chooses to, much faster, much quicker than Voddy, and he's going to have so much priority onto the map.
He caught Voddy with his pants, or did he? The tanks on the high ground aren't taking that much damage. I didn't see that 3rd tank, but now SPX is going to clean up that 2nd tank. He does trade 2 tanks for 2 tanks. He still has 3 Goliaths left over. And it looks like that tank is going to get taken down. And he cannot lead those Goliaths to top middle because they still don't know where the factory is. Now he does know where it is, and the factory has been spotted. No, it looks like a misplaced rally. That's going to be another dead tank. And SPX is running away with it because he has 4 facts up and running. Meanwhile, there's only 2 facts, and there's only 1 at the main of Voddy.
God. Not just that, but Voddy lost his rack, so he has to rebuild that before building any factories. And the thing is, he could go into starports, but look, SPX is already making Goliaths. And I was going to say, neither player completely reading the other player's build too well, because they both went for Goliaths, which really you only want if the other player is going for starports. I mean, the Vultures just in general are really strong, although Goliaths are pretty strong kind of early game, just in terms of damage output against tanks. But point is, SPX already has Goliaths. Now, he doesn't have that many tanks, and he doesn't have Vultures. Goliaths aren't really good at busting positions at all, especially running up high ground. But here, I think this might be too big of a force.
There's just too many units, but 3 tanks, this in normal circumstances would be a catastrophe. But because there's no supporting cast, the tanks just instantly get popped. I think he takes out all of SPX's tanks, so he may not be able to end the game here. But with one factory production, these Goliaths, I imagine, can just sit by the mineral line or just sit outside the base. Oh, the tank does get taken out.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much. I mean, it's not going to be a game. I don't think it's going to end the game here. These Goliaths are going to get a lot of SCE kills again. This is so many Goliaths. I mean, you never want to make this many Goliaths unless they're making raids. It just cuts into your tank production. It cuts into your factories. SPX is so far ahead. It doesn't really matter what he makes. Look, he's expanding already. He has so many factories. I like that he took that expansion to the bottom right, kind of in anticipation of having map control and having his opponent's high ground. It makes much more sense if you're going to kind of control your opponent's high ground on this map to expand there rather than expand to the 12 o'clock. So positionally, I like SPX's decision making here. But I mean, Voddy, look, he still has some space to play with when this happens. He can siege up on the low ground here, kind of just make sure that his natural doesn't get run into. He doesn't need to actually fight this. As I say that, SPX going in, no mines just yet. If there were mines there, this is basically... Okay, the mines actually finished, and he unsieges, so these mines are going to connect. And, oh my god, that's so much damage. All the tanks go down, and this game's basically over now. SPX is going to be able to contain. I mean, he doesn't have enough units just yet, but this is really bad for Voddy.
Yeah, you can see it reflected in the supply. 77 to 45, trading vultures for tanks, a huge loss for Voddy. And now SPX has the high ground, ended up taking bottom right as his base since he knew the factory was at top middle, and he's just going to be shooting up in supply so quickly. We still don't know if he has +1 weapon, but I did see the starport had started. So you imagine that +1 should be done pretty soon, but it looks like SPX found an opening. I don't know how. He's going to pop that tank, pop the second tank, and that's going to be 2 tanks for 1. And look how many tanks there are. There's 4 tanks. They can just siege this natural, and he's got reinforcing Goliath and Vulture too. This may just be game over.
Yeah, I mean, SPX already has 3 add-ons back at his base. He's basically just churning out tanks. You don't really see this usually kind of mass factory add-on bust through. It's usually more of a positional play where you don't make that many vultures, so you're not that aggressive. But obviously, his huge early game lead allows him to push in here and body his GGs.
Yeah, so a solid win from SPX, dealing with pressure very easily despite going for the gasless span and despite also going for a fast scout, which you would imagine, delayed his build quite a bit. So SPX is going to move on into the winners match. Voddy going to move on to the losers match, or the losers bracket. And now we're going to have Dandy versus Laabuela. This should be a TVP since Dandy's not facing Terran. He's not going to race pick PVT. And this should be good because Dandy, South American, just like Laabuela is. So you would imagine that these players should have played versus each other quite a bit. Also, I think they're both in Seoul.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think they are.
In Seoul. I thought you meant...
Yeah.
Like
if they're in Korea, then
dude.
I know that they're practicing really hard. And then that would make it even better. But yeah,
like,
Seoul
dude,
Clan.
They moved to Korea when, dude? That's news to me. But yeah,
they live with me. They're in the other room right now. I'm watching.
Yeah, they're right behind your green screen, dude. You're just hiding them. But yeah, they're both in the same clan. They're both from Peru. This time, I'm sure they're both from Peru. I know for a fact Laabuela is Peruvian. I'm almost willing to bet it all on it, but hopefully I'm not wrong. But yeah, they definitely must have played a lot. And I'm just the most interested to see Laabuela play because, like I've said before, Laabuela actually has had pretty good results as far as I know whenever he plays, but you don't get to see him play that much. So I have this feeling that though his name is pretty hilarious because it just means grandmother, the grandmother. So, but I think behind that ID is actually a really strong player. So I'm excited to see what he whips out against Dandy. Now, Dandy obviously knows Slouch himself, one of the top dogs in the non-Korean scene. So it's going to be kind of a proving ground, to say the least, for Laabuela. But I have a feeling he might be able to make it, especially in a best-of-1 situation.
Yeah, and Laabuela has had good results in show matches and tournaments. He did put a win on the board for South America versus NA. When that actually ended up happening, he took out TT1.
That was a long time.
So a really nice result there. And it was when TT1 was playing Terran. So you know that his PVT is pretty strong. So we've got Dandy versus Laabuela coming up. Winner's going to face SPX. SPX looked really good with the gasless. As I was stating before, it's gasless for me. I must do it wrong because whenever I face it, I insta-lose. But anytime I do it, I also insta-lose. So there's something that I do that is just not correct. But SPX nailed it. He actually beat a build that I have the most trouble with, which is the proxy second fact contain, and he beat it very easily. So SPX looking really good, looking like his normal self. I expect him to have good results, just like he has in almost all the previous BSLs. So let's take a look at the stats here. BSL winner in Season 4. I remember that, beating Koget in the finals on Sparkle. That was a really crazy game, like actually one of the best Sparkle games I've ever seen. But you can see the achievement speaks for himself. When Dandy plays BSL, he goes deep.
Yeah, I mean, Dandy is a mainstay of BSL, of non-Korean StarCraft. He's really, really strong. So definitely Laabuela, aka Peter, is going to have his work cut out for him. But it's, I mean, like I said, I don't think, I don't know. I don't want to conjecture too much because I really have no idea what to expect from Laabuela. I'm just excited to see how he plays against Dandy. And I'm excited to see how Dandy plays to see what form he's at. Like you just said, Nyokin, we weren't sure what SPX, what SPX's skill was looking like. But in that last game, I mean, kind of completely handled Voddy's 2 factory, which is really impressive in general. He just very composedly dealt with the early aggression and went to win the game. He didn't even have to play it out. So really impressive from him. And now it's Dandy's turn to sort of show us what he has, to show us his current form. And it's Laabuela's chance here to, have a really breakout result.
Yeah, and Dandy is just so strong. I really hope we get to see a TVT from him because, I've pointed out in other broadcasts how good his Wraith control is. I simply just want to see his Wraith because as soon as I see the Wraith, I'll know if he's good or not, or if he's in shape or not, because they're some of the best. They're up there. Like you think of other Wraith players like Koget. For sure, Dandy can at least match that level of play. His Wraiths are ridiculous while also macroing behind it. But I don't know about Laabuela. I have played him a decent amount, and he is a macro player, but he can mix in some all-ins, but generally macro. And when you play macro versus Dandy, generally you're going to have a tough time. So our first map is, of course, going to be Eclipse. Let's see who it's going to be. Is it going to be Sol Dandy, or is it going to be Sol Laabuela moving on to face SPX in the winner's match? In the top right, in the blue, we have the mainstay of Peru. It is Dandy.
And in the bottom left, we have his compatriot, both in nation and clan. It is Laabuela playing the red Protoss. And yeah, man, I feel like... Okay, already some shenanigans. The probe getting sent out. This looks like exactly like... Who was the first player that did this? Boa?
Boa.
Yeah. Proxy gate. Probably into gas steal. Now, as you were saying...
Steal. No, this is just gas steal. Unless it's right here, which I don't think you can do.
Dude. I think this is proxy.
Is it? It's not going to be there in time. The probe is late.
Yeah, but it's going to be a proxy anyway.
Okay, so it's just going to be a slightly late proxy gate. Every second matters in PvT, so this may actually be all the time.
This is the same location Boa also.
Yeah, it's funny because when I get bottom left, I've been proxied at the middle of the map. I've been proxied at the bottom side of the map. I've been proxied at mid left. But whenever I've been top right, I have only been proxied where, is this 2 gate? Because the probe's not coming in.
Yeah, it is. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. He needs to go right. Like, there's no reason not to send the probe. He's just not going to send the probe in. I really dislike this. There's no reason. And look, Dandy on the normal scouting path, he just sent this SCV bottom left is going to walk into this gateway. And this play from Laabuela, I absolutely... Okay, he's just pulling the SCVs, which makes a lot of sense. He's going to pull them early enough. Now, Laabuela is not going to pull, as you've maybe suggested
No.
earlier, Nayakan, to pull probes, but this is way too far from the Protoss' base.
Okay.
And, you know, this Zealot is not going to get out.
Yeah, so the magic number for SCVs when the gateway is around 300 health is 5, but you see that it was near 400, so he pulls 6, and now this Zealot is 100% not getting out. No reaction from Laabuela, and he's not going to pull probes himself to try and deny it, so all of it, okay, now I don't know what's going on, because there's a 2-gate follow-up. Now, Laabuela did see that this is going to be gasless, but still, this is such an all-in type of play.
Stealing.
Yeah, he's not gas stealing. Okay, well,
what?
I think everything's just falling apart for Laabuela because it looked like gasless, but it ends up being a gas. Now you're stuck with 2 gates. There's no cybernetics. That's delayed.
Yeah. Let me go on. Dude, let me go on this rant real quick. Okay,
Hit
sorry.
me with it.
I cannot hold this in. Not sending that probe in after proxying makes negative sense. It makes negative sense because what happens is, first of all, even if like you throw in the gas, even if the Terran takes their gas, they have to cut an SCV. They have to pull that SCV onto the refinery, and then you get your probe out onto the racks, the SCV building the racks. They have to pull another SCV to defend their SCV building the racks. There's no way in hell they're sending out a scout on top of that to check for a proxy to like get your gate. So literally just not sending the probe there shot him so much in the he just shot himself in the foot. The gate gets cleaned up, and now the follow-up is 2-gate Zealot. He could have actually gas stolen, in which case it makes a bit more sense because the factory is going to be so delayed. Okay, there's not going to be vultures in time, but now he's just going 2-gate Zealot. But look, the vulture's going to be out. He's going to have a bunker, and this just, I mean, Dandy's in such a good spot.
Yeah, Dandy's in an amazing position. This build is backfiring for Laabuela. Ended up going 3 Zealots before the Cybernetics. That means he's going to have 3 Zealots. But unless they can get by this bunker, which does happen, the Zealots really are not going to help him at all during the initial stages of the game. Also, Dandy sees it, so he sees the Cybernetics timing. And there goes those Zealots are going to try and run by, but look how much damage they've already taken. The drill looked like it was going to be fantastic, but since there's no goon follow-up, he can just unload all the Marines without worry. And now these Zealots are actually quite low. The one on the left side is within a couple hits. That's 1 down right there.
Oh my
Second
God,
one going to go down. The Micro's incredible. He takes only 2 Marine losses for 3 Zealots. Now, he did pull a decent chunk of SCVs, but other than that, Laabuela not finding any success. And knowing Dandy, when he gets a lead like this, he's content with trying to push his advantage. I expect to see a second fact go up, especially seeing this type of opener from Laabuela. No Nexus, just goons. He's just going to make a decent amount of tanks. Oh, that's a starport.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't even get to punish he didn't even get to punish Dandy for going add-on first instead of the vulture. Like Dandy just went the add-on, didn't even care. It was 2-gate Zealots. Like whatever, I don't know, I just don't care. So just Disasterville for Laabuela. The Dragoons finally coming out. Gonna get some pressure onto the bunker. This is really his plan, kind of to go for a 2. Basically, I think what his plan was to go for 2-gate goon to pressure this bunker, but just the way he did the build, one Dragoon just doing the Protoss wide walk and right into death, just gets popped like that. So I think Laabuela, man, he's feeling the tournament nerves. He is playing against Dandy, who's a legend basically. So maybe it's tournament nerves, but definitely this is definitely not his game. It's not his game.
Well, Dandy did try and sneak a vulture across the map. It looks like Laabuela was able to fend it off, so at least that's going for him. I can't tell. Is that a second Nexus going down at mid left? I think it is. So this is how Laabuela's gonna try and get back into this game. He showed 2-gate. It looks like Protoss is gonna make a lot of units, but in reality, cutting a lot of units. I'm gonna try and get back that way. And regardless of whether Protoss cuts units or builds units, what counters that? Vultures with mines, so going for the drop will be fantastic regardless of whether it gets into the main or the third base. It will shut down both of them. And look at this, still no robo in sight. It's going to be 3-gate. Is that going to be a 4th gate? I think that's a 4th gate. So 4-gate robo, or 4-gate no robo, no obs, there's going to be no counterplay to this vulture drop.
Yeah, I mean, I really like how Dandy went for the starport. It makes a lot of sense. You kind of feel it that it's going to probably most of the time, most Protosses go for a 2-gate into double Nexus follow-up like that. I mean, they double Nexus off the 2-gate is usually the follow-up. Very rarely do they go for stuff like, maybe random DTs or specifically Reavers, especially if their natural is delayed like this. So kind of a good read. And even against Reavers, I mean, you would have the Wraith out. So just in general, like if, because Terran doesn't need that many units to defend from this position. Look at his nice wall. He has eBay, Racks, and Bunker at his natural, kind of walling off for the tanks. So he doesn't even need that many factories. He just needs to get the starport out. It covers him against shuttles, and it allows him to really pressure a double expand build like this. You see, Laabuela has no idea this is coming. How could he? I mean, he has no obs. He could feel that something like this is possible, but most of his units are out at the Terran's base, kind of preventing vultures from running by. But joke's on them, because the vultures are already loaded up in this drop. They're about to get unloaded onto these probes. 2 vultures at the natural, 2 vultures are going to be dropped in the main, and he doesn't even react, just lets his probes kind of get completely destroyed by these vultures. 2 more drop in the main. Now these ones, actually the probes get pulled. Still one probe goes down, but most of the damage was inflicted at Laabuela's natural, and still that one vulture got another probe before dying. So I think that was probably around 10 probes right there.
Oh, and he ends up seeing the third base and keeps the dropship alive. The one saving grace of the drop, even though it did a lot of damage, I thought was maybe Dandy wouldn't see, or one saving grace for Laabuela is maybe Dandy wouldn't see the third base. But now that he's seen it, he knows how greedy Laabuela has been. And in response, it looks like he's just going to put down a chunk of factories. That's going to be a 5 or 6 fact follow-up. That is 6 factories. I don't think this is for a +2 timing. He's already got +1 halfway along. This is going to be a 1-1 timing, channeling his inner TT1 most likely.
Yeah. But as you say that, he is pushing out to this defensive location where you can put some turrets. I mean, this is obviously clear-cut going to be a 6 factory 1-0 timing, though, because he only has 1 armory. It'd be surprising to me if he waited for a second. Okay, he's actually going for a science facility and a second armory, so it's going to be a 2-1 timing. How do you feel about this?
So actually he is going to play like how Terra did, and vultures ran by all of those goons, and I don't see any reaction at all from Laabuela. He's instead trying to just counterattack, and that's a lot of goons actually, so he may be able to bust through, but there's still a bunker, there's still high ground, but tanks need to get up there. They're sieging on the low ground.
Oh, this bunker's going to go down, and these tanks are accessible to the Dragoons. Now Laabuela is showing a lot of restraint. I think most Protosses might have YOLO'd in there, and he had so many goons that I can actually see it being justifiable, but he's going to pull back. He did a lot of damage, killed 4 tanks, and that is not, it's not a trivial number of tanks to lose, especially when you're on these 2 base builds. The most important part of these 2 base builds is building up your tanks, and you just don't have that many tanks to work with. Look, he only has 4 tanks now. He's going to go up to 6 tanks. Laabuela has a lot of time at this point to just probe up, get up to that 50 probe count, maybe 55, and then just put down a swell of gates and just completely smash this Terran timing attack. So I think Laabuela is definitely kind of okay. As I say that, 1 drop coming into this third base, cleaning up a lot of probes, causing a lot of mining time. So still Laabuela on the back foot. He really is taking so much economic damage that it's hard to see him holding off a timing attack, but he did do good damage with those goons.
Yeah, we were questioning whether Dandy was going to be on form, and it looks like he is, because the multitask, really nice. The drop into the third base, also drop into the main, got so many probes. And while this is all happening, also macroing going into the 7 fact 2-1 timing that we saw Terror pull out. And the amount of damage he's done with the vultures, I feel like if he wanted to just go right now, he could probably end the game. But as Terran, you got to be cautious, because really your heavy hitters are in those tanks. If you bleed them out over and over and over, all of a sudden Protoss has a big comeback, which you really don't want to happen, of course. So he is just going to wait for 2-1, build up that tank count. But look at the effects the Vultures have done to the Protoss economy. Still only on 4 gate, and we're at 12 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I mean, Laabuela is struggling economically, but he is on 3 base. This 3rd base was fast, so he can build up that probe count. You know, he lost so many probes, but he's still even on worker count at this point, so he's going to lose even more probes, though. But this is a lot of Vultures for Dandy to be losing. I mean, yeah, obviously this is good for Dandy. You know, I'm not going to say, you know, I don't want to sound like a like a typical Terran player. Whatever situation I see on the screen is bad for Terran, but it's not, you can't just always lose Vultures like that, especially if you're going for a timing attack like this. It definitely delays your your supply count from going up. It delays your timing attack from coming, or it just weakens it because you just won't have that many Vultures to cover for your tanks. But you can see Dandy actually has some very strong macro, and the Vulture harass is obviously paying dividends because he's ahead in supply, which you never see in this matchup. So this is going to be really hard for Laabuela to hold off, and Laabuela is actually taking a 4th base, but this is way too late because he's actually taking the 4th base. Okay, never mind. It looks like Dandy has a 3rd command center coming, so he's looking to expand himself. So this is a good expansion timing from Laabuela. I was going to say, you don't want to expand close to when the other opponent is ready for a timing attack, because that's basically a bunch of resources down the drain that aren't going to help you. But I think Laabuela's 4th base is going to, you know, pay off for itself very soon here. And it looks like we're going to go into kind of a longer game.
We have the DT try and pull some mines into the tanks, but the Vultures were looking at it. He does not suspect a second. Oh, the vessel is just randomly there, and it just kills the DT before it can pull a secondary mine into the other tanks. Now, Abuela, I think with the 4th base, was trying to play a bit greedy, but ends up being rewarded since Dandy's not moving out just yet. But we can see +2 is about to kick in. Generally, Terran just starts moving out around then, regardless of whether they're maxed or not. And we know that Dandy has been scanning. He knows the gateway count. He knows how much damage he's done. So he's not worried about running into an overwhelming amount of units. Now, Laabuela needs to take this fight, actually. This is the best angle he could really hope for. So you see that the DT gets on top of the tanks, but there's just way too many units for Terran. There's only, what, like 5 goons there?
Yeah.
So instead, he's going to opt for a counterattack and hope Dandy turns around.
Yeah, Laabuela going for the guerrilla tactics here, though. He's going to run goons up into mines. You know, you don't like seeing that, but there's just so little defense here that these goons are going to get on top of the command center. They're probably going to deny mining from this base, or maybe even kill the command center. But, I mean, Dandy, he doesn't care. He's already moving to Laabuela's natural. There's no speed on Zealots just yet, and Dandy doesn't even care. He's just on siege A moving. Laabuela does not have enough units to deal with this. Now Laabuela is going to get this. I mean, he's going to get a lot of kills. He's going to definitely damage the Terran economy, but does it really matter when Terran is basically, he just leaves, no GT.
Yeah, he just taps out. The push is way too strong. No siege in that fight either. Didn't need it. That's how far ahead Dandy was. His 2-1 had just kicked in. He had 3 bases. He had matching SCV count. He was up SCVs for the majority of the game. So Dandy's going to move on to face SPX. So even though Dandy's a Terran player, I think he should be playing PvT, but he can play TvT. He's good at both. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter what he plays. I actually like his TvT more than his PvT. I think his PvT is a bit easy to read. He plays Goonman into mass expansions. So as long as SPX hits something like a 2-1 build or a 3-2 build, that would be a good counter to what Dandy generally does. So I actually hope that we see TvT.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I don't know what to expect. To be honest, I haven't really seen Dandy play too much PvT. Like yourself, I mean, I've only really seen him play TvT when I've played against him, and it's pretty strong. He does tend to go for rates a lot, and actually he tends to be really aggressive in my experience, like Terror, in terms of his early game build selection. So it would be interesting to see that. But like you said, I mean, it could be Protoss, it could be Terran. Either way, who's favored here, though? I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they both look strong in their games.
Yeah, SPX had a convincing win over Voddy, just like Dandy had a convincing win over Laabuela. Nothing really went well for Laabuela, just like nothing went well for Voddy. So we actually don't know how strong these players are in the mid-late game. Dandy hit a solid build. Like, he nailed almost everything versus Laabuela, but of course he was way far ahead. He didn't have to worry about reaver drop. He didn't have to build turrets, around his base. So our next matchup is, of course, going to be SPX versus Dandy. We are just waiting to get into that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Have you played SPX? What do you think about him in TVT?
I haven't played SPX recently. I've played him before, and I mean, he's solid, but to be honest, I mean, yeah, I really don't know. I really don't feel like any of these players have a massive edge on anyone else in TVT. I mean, we saw SPX completely decimate Voddy, but I feel like gasless games tend to go that way unless one player accepts that someone's going to get away with a gasless expand and just goes for like minor damage, like something like a vulture speed run by, or like just the tanks at the front to damage the bunker. But when you go gasless and someone chooses to all in it, games are always going to look like that. So personally, I think Dandy, SPX, Voddy, I don't think one of them is significantly above the rest in terms of TVT. Dandy, I know when I first switched to Terran a long time ago, I mean, he had good TVT back then too. But like you said, it depends if he's playing PVT more, if he's playing TVT. It depends on his practice games. I have no idea what he's gonna whip out here, but I can't really see how SPX versus Dandy. I really wouldn't be able to give an advantage to any of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so actually SPX, when I think about him, I haven't played him in a while, but when I did play him, I actually thought of him as like miniature Dandy because he didn't have the Wraith control that Dandy had, but he still played the similar type of style. So I think that their styles are generally the same. I think if SPX tries and faces Dandy's going like the same comp tank Wraith, he's going to be in a bit of trouble. I hope he plays more vultures, more tank vulture as opposed to tank Wraith. But one thing that SPX does do that Dandy doesn't do, in my experience, is SPX likes the Marine Vulture combo. I remember him doing that versus me quite often, whereas Dandy, as you said, is aggressive, but generally it's like rally tank vulture aggressive. The build that I recommend to a lot of players. Well, with that said, let's take a look at the profiles again. Again, Dandy just a beast in BSL. SPX, a consistent round of 16 player, but never really moving past the round of 8 or making it into the round of 8 except in BSL 7. You can see that his versus Protoss record is extremely high, 9-4 versus Terran, pretty decent at 40%, and versus Zerg at 43%. Meanwhile, Dandy seems to be very strong at Terran or TVT. Well, we don't know if it's PVT or TVT, but 66% win rate. So his best matchup by far.
Yeah. I mean, that is significant to think about. He's going to feel very comfortable in this group specifically. There's so many Terrans, and he quickly dispatched the Laabuela. I mean, like, that was no problem at all, actually. So I think at this point, I mean, still, like I said, man, Dandy, SPX, Voddy, I feel like it's still a toss-up between them, the three of them. I think, again, Voddy probably has a bit more to prove in terms of lacking experience and tournament kind of recognition in that sense, but he's definitely no slouch himself in the matchup. SPX, versus Terran, probably looks like, I mean, he hasn't, this sample size isn't massive, right? I would say SPX is kind of one of those players that is kind of solid all around Terran. Like I can't imagine, I don't think he really has a specifically weak matchup. I think he's pretty good at all of them. So yeah, I mean, again, heading into this game, I guess you have to say Dandy looks a bit favored, but it's gonna depend on whether or not we see him whip out the Protoss versus Terran or not. And finally, the game is ready. We're ready to go. The first map is going to be Reap the Storm, and we're gonna have Dandy versus SPX just now in a second.
In the bottom middle, in the blue, we have our Russian Terran. It is SPX.
And in the mid left position, we have the red Peruvian, it is a Dandy playing Terran. So I kind of held my breath there for a second. So you know, what are we gonna get? Okay, so apparently the players had to declare their races for what they're gonna play throughout the tournament, and Dandy declared that he was gonna play Terran, so he's gonna be playing Terran throughout BSL 10. So, okay, finally that's clarified. We know it's gonna be TVT. Now, Reap the Storm, TVT. Tell me about it.
It's vetoed. That's why it's vetoed. TVT nightmare.
Yeah.
If you play a good Terran and you get out positioned, so for example, Dandy has the good spawn here because he can get into the natural or looking outside of the natural, and he can siege the high ground of SPX from the low ground, which means you have very limited space to build your factories. So for me, this isn't, I played on it quite a bit until that happened, and it was insta veto. And I'm not surprised that Dandy's playing TVT, because just watching his PVT, I think it's considerably weaker than his TVT. His Terran versus Terran when he's on is insane if he's microing his race and also macroing at the same time. So I'm not shocked here. Now, as I was saying, SPX likes to go Vultures and Marines, and we see that Dandy's going for a 14cc and SPX is going for an 11 gas. So this is probably going to be at least 2 Vultures, maybe even 3 Vultures comboed with a couple Marines. But now that he's facing a 14cc, generally that doesn't work out too well unless his intentions are to just run by the bunker. But I can't imagine SPX risking a victory on something like that.
Yeah, this isn't the ideal Rax positioning for dealing with this. Now, SPX, luckily for him, he's going to get the first scout off, and this is massive because honestly, the SCV harass onto the sort of the building SCVs is pretty annoying, and the other player has to, pull more SCVs to defend, and it kind of jacks their economy up. And okay, but SPX, you got to get in there. A good, the SCV was kind of on a move command there, but he's going to see that this is 14 command center, and he actually made the Marine right away, so he can definitely still rally a Marine, Marines here. It looks like he's not going to. I think maybe he feels like the Rax is maybe not optimally placed. It's not next to his ramp, but I personally think you see 14 command center on this first scout, 100% you're rallying Marines to the natural. I mean, you want to force the bunker out earlier than usual. You want to force Marines out earlier than usual. And here he's just kind of accepting that Dandy is going to get this command center. He's not even harassing the command center, the SCV building the command center. So just in general, Dandy is going to get this off without a hitch. And 14 command center as opposed to, or 13 command center as opposed to gasless expand, actually has a much faster factory timing. So if you get this bunker off and you got the Marines in it and you got the faster factory, there's almost no downside to this. I feel like SPX is already in a really bad spot.
Well, it's funny that SPX went gasless and stopped the 2-fact. Meanwhile, he's going for the 2-fact follow-up himself. Oh, no, he is not. That is a proxy starport. Now, we don't know if Dandy watched the games, but he did come in with the SCV and saw that there was no command center. So he knows for sure that this is some type of one base play, but he doesn't know exactly what it is. So he's got to, he's going to have to build an armory, because last game, SPX didn't have to build Goliath, but he ended up building Goliath, and it worked out for him. He got on top of those tanks, but really you don't want to have Goliath versus a mass tank comp. But this time it is going to be, I think, drop ships actually. I don't think this is going to be for Cloak. Vultures are already out, and Reap the Storm is one of the best maps for drops. The main is pretty wide open.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if this is going to be straight up drop right away, or if he's... So the thing is, with this control tower, you can actually queue up the dropship and even start... He's only making vultures. Exactly what I was going to say. You can queue up the dropship and make Cloak at the same time while you're building vultures off your first factory. And, the drop is going to come in, and then the Wraith with Cloak is going to come in. And if Dandy doesn't respond just correctly to this, he might die. I mean, he might take. He's not gonna. This is TVT after all, guys. So it's not like vultures and wraiths are gonna kind of raise the Terran base on their own, but he might take so much economic damage that it's gonna be unrecoverable from. So I really like this build from SPX. Actually, it's gonna be really strong here. You can see on SPX's first-person view, he's loading up the dropship. He's going in here now. Dandy, does he have anything to defend?
No, there's nothing in the main. I don't even think he has a tank out. I don't think that SPX has mines just yet. He may have been delaying to get mines because he knows the unit count is going to be so low. So as long as he can keep the tanks at bay, he's going to be in a phenomenal position. This is a 4 vulture drop, and there's nothing out for Dandy. There's no tanks. There's one, but no mines. So for now, the tanks and SCVs can actually fight. Now mines kick in, but they're not going to be able to actually catch that tank. But as you said, Wraith are coming in as a follow-up, and there's really not that much anti-air. A couple Marines. Siege mode actually kicked in because Dandy didn't know what this was. So I don't think a Goliath is going to be coming out. It may be coming out if Dandy was able to read this properly, that he needs to actually be aware of Cloaked Wraith. Vulture going to drop right on top of the tank? No, I think he should just drop into the natural. You know, there's a couple mines there, but Dandy doesn't know exactly where they are. Oh, he's going to try and get him. Oh, that mine.
Oh my God, that was so huge. That was so close to killing just 40 trillion billion SCVs, and he puts down some more mines. I like the idea of just dropping on top of the tank to put down the mines. Now, is this doing enough damage? He killed a lot of vulture or a lot of SCVs initially. Now the cloak kicks in. He doesn't have Dandy, that is, he doesn't have comsats just yet, but you can see they're building. He's only going to have 2 comsats, but it's not like Wraiths have infinite energy when they initially pop out of the starport. So these 2 Wraiths, I think they're only going to get another maybe 3 or 4 SCV kills. And only now does SPX start his command center. I was going to say Dandy played quite greedy there, going for the double factory and the starport and armory and academy, everything at once. I mean, maybe you can just afford all of that with 14 command center. I don't know, but it looks like he's gonna get away with it. I don't think he took anywhere near the amount of damage that, you know, is required for SPX to kind of come out ahead after that. So I think Dandy's in a really good spot.
I think SPX is in an okay position now because now Dandy's building a bunch of Goliaths, which you don't necessarily want. Also, he did rush the comsat. He did a decent amount of damage to the SCV line. I think it's pretty much even. The dropship is still alive too, so vulture drop is pretty deadly, but you cannot lose wraiths like that. They're so expensive. Every wraith could have been a tank. Now look at those mines in the outskirts of the base. If Dandy forgets about them, there could be a big mine hit sometime later in the game. You can see that the counterattack is coming. It's going to only be 4 Goliaths. Vulture is going to get loaded up, going to try and go for another drop. This is one of the downfalls of going Vulture Wraith, is something as small as this can deal a ton of damage. You can see that SPX is very worried. He's just going to retreat his tank, double Vulture drop into the natural. This is what SPX needs to keep this game scrappy. Cannot let the Goliaths get on top of that tank. That is 4 Goliaths. That is mega DPS. And it looks like he's just going to let them get up the ramp, but no, SCV just barely gets there in time. Siege mode, really big hit right there. But now 3 Goliaths on top of the tank, and I think Dandy may have actually brought it back. But meanwhile, this one Vulture wiping the natural.
Yeah, dude, SPX, that second tank came in just in time, but kind of didn't unsiege it as soon as he should have. Luckily for SPX, though, this Vulture at the natural did so much damage. So this game isn't completely over, but I mean, the supply kind of says, you know, it says a completely different story. Dandy massively ahead, basically 15 supply up at this point, probably mostly in units. So you can expect a follow-up attack from Dandy. But at the same time, I mean, SPX still has the threat of the dropship. SPX just has 2 tanks that popped out, so they're going to be in siege mode, ready to kind of defend against any other Goliath attack. So not clear here that Dandy can instantly end the game, though being ahead, you know, a decent amount. SPX can definitely play from this position, but now we head into the mid game where Dandy has a slight just a slight edge in general in terms of his economy, his army count, which means, you know, generally that advantage in TVT translates to kind of more forward positions onto the map. You get more of the map to yourself. And like you were talking about earlier, you know, when we were talking about the map, Nyokin, he has the positional advantage here that if he takes a forward position kind of near SPX's mineral only, he can start sieging onto the high ground, and it's going to be so hard for SPX to deal with. But it, you know, for now, only going for a dropship.
Well, this drop that Dandy goes for, he does it quite often. I remember running into it. I'm like, wow, 4 Goliath drop in my end 2001, a double tank drop at the natural. But SPX has 2 tanks waiting in his main, so this drop really shouldn't deal that much damage. But double tank drop is quite expensive and generally pretty easy to deal with, but it looks like Dandy's not going to be able to deal with it just yet. Oh, then we cannot lose the dropship. That's 4 Goliaths just instantly dead. And this 1 tank drop at the natural and Wraith catch of the dropship completely changed the tides of this game. That's a lot of anti-air just down the drain. You can see SPX now actually has supply lead. Dandy's taking a 3rd command center, but I don't know how he's going to defend that after losing so much supply.
Yeah, I mean, this was so good for SPX. Somehow he makes the 2 tank drop work, which almost never works like that. I mean, there are just no units at Dandy's natural because Dandy took the majority of his units, which was that, you know, those 4 Goliaths, and just dropped them into SPX's base. Meanwhile, he only had 1 siege tank at his main and a couple more units kind of around his factory. So somehow SPX finds some sick damage there with a kind of unorthodox drop. And now Dandy, the thing is, he's taking a mineral only, but who cares about that, man? That's not a gas base. That's not bottom left. And if SPX, look, the good thing about these positions for SPX is that his 3rd gas is actually tucked away. Whereas in a sense, Dandy's is kind of more exposed. Looks like SPX is going for another drop, double dropship here with 2 Wraiths. I wonder what's in these drops. I mean, I'm assuming it's Tank Goliath. If these get into prime position, there's not that many units from Dandy, so these might actually do a lot of damage.
I think this is this 1 tank is still just sitting there in the main. That might just be the saving move for Dandy, because 4 tank drop comboed with 2 Wraith can deal a lot of damage. But because they're only tanks, you can see how powerful straight up SCVs are. That was a huge loss from SPX. At least he kept these 2 Wraiths alive, but one of them's going to get picked off by one of Dandy's Wraiths, or maybe not. There's no scan available, so that Wraith is, oh, he did get it. So only 1 Wraith remaining, but that is again a big loss from SPX. And command center is done for Dandy, so even though it's a mineral only, that's going to be a lot of more minerals coming in for him. In TVT, because of how popular vulture builds are, you don't actually need to have a 3rd gas. Well, you do, but you don't need them to pump out like 9 factory vultures. So I'm okay with this base. He'll be taking top middle or bottom left pretty soon too. 4 triple drops. Now this is like the entirety of SPX's army. So if this fails again, he has nothing left.
Yeah, but the thing with that drop is SPX at least dealt, or he traded those 4 tanks for basically more or less 4 tanks of Dandy's plus the Wraith and stuff. So it was kind of an even trade, but the problem is Dandy does expand behind it, whereas SPX has no 3rd base. And you can see Dandy, look, this is macro Dandy. This is what impresses me about Dandy as opposed to many of the non-Korean Terrans, is he can play a very, very solid macro game. He's always expanding. He's using a lot of these, instead of using these resources to put down a bunch of factories and kind of go all in, he's using it to expand even faster, getting that 4th base going. Meanwhile, SPX is only on 2 base. Now, the thing is, SPX actually is playing a style that can very definitely punish this when you're staying on such a low base count, but going for drops, you got that mobility advantage. And, you know, Dandy is spreading himself out thin with all these expansions. So, but the thing is, he comes in, there's already 2 Goliaths kind of taking shots at the dropships, but they don't kill any drops. And this is a massive drop into Dandy's base. There's like 6 tanks. They're going to siege up. Not just yet, though. They're going to kill all these SCVs. And this is doing massive amounts of damage.
Yeah, now Dandy needs to use those tanks on the low ground and siege from there, but instead he tries to go back to his main, and I don't think that this is going to work out at all. 7 tanks set up with 2 Goliaths to support. SPX has breached the main base. He's also shut down the science facility, so the powerful +2 upgrade has been delayed from Dandy. Luckily for Dandy, at least he has 4 bases, so he has a lot of econ, but how are you going to bust through 7 tanks like this?
Yeah, I mean, this drop definitely paid for itself in terms of the amount of SCVs it killed, and it's still doing a lot of damage. It's still buying SPX a lot of time, but what is SPX doing with it? He's still not expanding. I mean, where is this guy's third base? Okay, he's actually loading up more units into the drop, so slowly but surely. I mean, the thing is, if SPX finds quality drops like this one, he's going to be able to end the game. But, you know, the more time passes, I mean, at this point, when you drop over and over again, the subsequent drops, unless you're doing crazy amounts of damage, they get harder to pull off because essentially, you know, Dandy's already going to be in position in his main if you're like just dropping the same spot over and over. But look, the thing is, Dandy spread himself out so thinly with all these expansions that I feel like SPX can just kind of fly the dropships anywhere, and he's going to have a good location to drop units at.
Looks like he's got his eyes set on that 4th base, so he's going to at least shut that down. I think a command center is going up at mid-right for SPX. Can't really tell, but yeah, this is a denied 3rd base or 4th base for Dandy. SPX still has a really strong army, and these tanks on the high ground, that's going to be a denied 3rd gas. Very important in TBT.
I mean,
it looks like it is just going to stabilize for now, but remember, at least Dandy has the armor and the science facility done, so he's going to have +2, whereas I don't think there's even a science facility started, or if +1 is even done for SPX.
Yeah, and I mean, but the thing is, Dandy can still choose to expand to the bottom left here, so SPX kind of committing a decent amount of units to the top left. Later in the game, they're going to become irrelevant. Like, they're going to become relevant, but for now, those units are kind of stranded there unless he, you know, he plans on joining these together. The thing is, he can actually siege on the low ground and siege this mineral only. And the thing is, SPX's 3rd is just so late, but he's done so much damage with all these drops, and Dandy, instead of using the mineral only to fuel more factories, he's used them to expand, which has got shut down. So SPX basically evening this game out very beautifully, putting himself into a nice position, because at this point he's going to have a 3rd gas to work with. Meanwhile, Dandy has no 3rd gas of his own. So, and just positionally though, it's easier to see SPX from this position kind of take more bases than Dandy. Now, SPX's main is definitely always going to be kind of subject to drops from Dandy, just given the rotational asymmetry of this map. But look, Dandy, I mean, he can expand bottom left and double expand there, and then after that, where does he go? While SPX has the whole kind of mid right side of the map, top right side of the map to work with.
Yeah, SPX has a stranglehold on this game. It all comes down to, can Dandy find a position that's not reinforced? Like right here where there's only 2 tanks, that's an opportunity for Dandy. If he was to go right now, he did scan it, the dropships are completely out of position, and this is where it gets dangerous on this particular spot, because if Dandy secures this, he can siege the high ground. Here he comes, vultures in the front, that's gonna be 2 tanks instantly dead. There's only 1 tank there now, and he has a couple wraiths also built up, so he'll be able to have vision onto the high ground. SPX knows how dire a situation this is, so he instantly sends his dropships back instead of trying to go for a counterattack.
Yeah, and it's really unclear here. I mean, yeah, SPX seems to be in a better spot this game, but it's definitely very even. It's gonna really depend on who gets their 4th base up faster, 5th base up faster. And Danny, it looks like he just doesn't get quite forward enough with these tanks to kind of threaten SPX's main. SPX had enough time to bring reinforcements back with the drops. Now, SPX has a massive advantage in terms of the mobility here with drops. Dandy doesn't have starports going. It doesn't seem like he's making drops or rates of his own. I'll be looking, I mean, he's still on 2 gas only, so it's very hard for him to afford that. So, but Dandy definitely has a lot of minerals to work with. You can see he's making a lot of vultures. Oh, and the massive drop onto these tanks is going to clear up that position from SPX, or from Dandy rather. And oh, but Dandy still has some tanks there to kind of reinforce, but this is good for SPX.
Yeah, it looked like he dragged a mine on top of all those tanks. He even manages to save 1 tank, so at least he clears up some of the tanks there. I thought he was going to drop on the left side and deny the bottom left expansions. Those both have gas bases, so it's extremely important for Dandy to take it. I don't see him building a command center anywhere. So Danny's kind of on a clock to get something done. Otherwise, he's going to be depleted in gas pretty soon. It's approaching 20 minutes. I don't think I saw that armory spinning. So +2 weapon, I don't think is coming in. And he's got a good tank count right now. Oh, there's the race. And there's actually, okay, there's the one Goliath to save the day. And oh, all of these wraiths may end up falling. And that's so expensive. Sure, he got the drop ships, but I think the wraiths are actually a bit more important.
Yeah, I mean, it's unclear. I mean, I don't really fault Dandy for going for that play, right? Like, gonna reduce SPX's one advantage. Dandy finally getting his expansion up, gonna get this bottom expansion. And you can see it's really hard actually to keep your minerals down when you have a mineral only expansion in this matchup, because the only thing you can really spend it on is vultures, and it's hard to get your factory count up while maintaining tank production, especially if you're only on 2 gas. So thing is, this mineral only is kind of an annoyance for Dandy, whereas SPX got his 3rd gas going, he has his 4th gas going. So SPX, economically at least, definitely in a much better position, but still only on 5 factories, still only on 1 starport. So I'm guessing his SCV count is actually quite low compared to Dandy's. And I feel like Dandy, he's definitely on way more factories. It looks like he's on 7 factory or something looking at the minimap. So I think Dandy, honestly, he has 6 factories actually. So this is it. I mean, SPX, the thing is, he definitely has a better position on the map, though Dandy has kind of more of the middle of the map. I don't know, dude.
Still +1 weapon for SPX. He at least has +2 coming in. And SPX, I am looking at the map, and even though he's denied top left, he needs to aggressively take the top right side, because if he doesn't, Dandy's already taking bottom left. He's gone from having only 2 gases. He's going to shoot up to 4 gases pretty soon, and that's going to match what SPX has in terms of gas, but he's also got the mineral only. He's also had +2 weapon, I think, for a much longer time. So SPX really needs to start considering positioning tanks at top right. It looks like that's what he's doing now. There's it's only 20 supplied now advantage for SPX or for Dandy. It was like 40 a minute ago. So if we assume that SPX gets top right now, that puts him on 6 gas, 7 bases. Meanwhile, Dandy would have basically 7 bases if he can take all of top left. He's got the supply to bust through, but he's just not feeling confident enough to actually push up there.
Yeah, and I mean, can't fault any player at this point. You really are kind of forced to go for this longer game. It's important TVT. I mean, TVT is such a positional matchup. If you can definitely go for a much more aggressive style and kind of focus all of your units onto one side of the map and bust through certain positions, but when you do that, you kind of leave yourself open to counterattacks on other sides of the map, and you know, those can be basically game ending. So you really have to kind of maintain, it's kind of the only matchup that, you know, is this positional. You have to maintain units on all sides of the map, you know, just to deny kind of the other player from advancing, but not just advancing, but also just running vultures by and kind of wrecking your economy. So at this point, it looks like we're going to go into split map situation. Dandy's going to get that. Okay, this top left base is nice from SPX, but I'm kind of curious how he plans on getting SCVs there. Meanwhile, Dandy's going to get the top side of the map. I really don't understand why SPX is taking that base, because he really wants to just be expanding to the top right as soon as possible. Dandy actually went for the 2 ports, so you can see Dandy's macro in general this game has been much better than SPX's. I think SPX has been lacking in the SCV department. You know, it took him so long to get his infrastructure up. At this point, I don't think SPX has much of an air force in this. You know, when it gets so positional, it really, starport becomes so much more important, whether it's dropships, whether it's wraiths, and Dandy might have a killer drop here onto SPX's main.
Yeah, but it also might be a catastrophe, because this is 6 dropships, sure, but this is triple turret, and there's really not a lot of surface area. Okay, he unloads all of the tanks, and it's also right within the armory, so that's going to shut down +3 probably. There's no way that SPX can actually deal with this army, and unlike SPX, I think Dandy's going to reinforce this extremely quickly, but lack of vision may be a problem. He's got 3 tanks in range, but they're not shooting.
Oh my god, SPX is actually going to deal with this just fine, gets tanks in range. That could have been a disaster because honestly, killing the depots like this is not a bad plan in general because there's very little area to build more depots. You can see SPX still does not have top right. So this is going to slow down SPX significantly, but these are really good trades for SPX. He's killing all the tanks while losing none himself, but he had to, okay, never mind. Well, a SIG shot goes off there, kills like 3 tanks, 4 tanks. That's massive. So Dandy, I think, definitely finding the damage he needed to, because even if he didn't kill economy, he killed a bunch of depots. That's going to slow down the production. That's going to slow everything down. SPX had to run a bunch of units down to defend. Man. And now Dandy has a massive amount of tempo. Look, he's using that time to get 12 o'clock running, and SPX is not in a good spot.
This is GG. 7 drop ships coming in, and remember, he's supply blocked, so it's not like he's got any units coming out. It's just this. That's a big hit from the tanks at the bottom, but there's just an overwhelming amount of tanks, I think. Maybe not, though. Surprisingly, the drop didn't deal as much damage as I thought. The tank at the top side did a decent amount of damage, so did that one tank at the bottom. But again, not a lot of units coming out for SPX. I don't think I see any of the factories blinking. Maybe they are, but if Dandy can load up another round of drop ships, he should be able to just wipe the main base. It looks like tanks and Goliaths ended up getting elevated from the low ground to clean this up, but still not a lot of tanks. And Dandy's instantly loading up these drop ships and trying to find where's the next weak point that he can exploit. Looks like now he's decided that mid right or bottom right is the way to go.
And look at Dandy's mineral count, just up to 7k minerals. I mean, that is a bit too much even for mineral only. He could be using all of that money to just make a bunch of vultures and use this time to bust the position out on any side of the map, really. But I think Dandy kind of struggling a bit here with just converting this advantage. He's not, this thing is, he could have made a bunch of vultures and cracked the top left, took that expansion, but Dandy is very much set on this, on breaking SPX's main. And if this doesn't work, SPX has so many bases top right to work with, but SPX does not have the time to take it because he's constantly getting dropped. Now he has units in position, so slowly but surely I feel like Dandy here is losing steam. And you know, SPX, he's gonna be able to take top right. Dandy is not going to be able to bust any other position onto the map. Now, SPX definitely needs to start making either wraiths or drops or something of his own, because if one player has kind of air going and the other player doesn't, that's a massive mobility advantage in these situations. So I'm curious to see how SPX is going to address that, but still, SPX is very slow on taking top right. He really wants to just expand top right just any time, dude.
The drop defense from SPX has been fantastic, and luckily for Dandy, SPX was never mining top left at all, and unluckily for SPX, he wasn't mining top left at all. Even if all he did was mine the gas, that means that Dandy would never get it back, and now he's losing drop ships. One goes down, and as you said, SPX is transitioning into the late game. Looks like Dandy's finally going to find success here, busting through the middle, but he's going to take a decent amount of losses. But with BCs coming out, if he can just whittle down the Goliath count, BCs will just reign supreme. I know those are BCs because we did see the add-on, but still SPX struggling to take top right. It seems that Dandy's actually forgotten about top left because there's been no movement up there. If he had done any drop up there, now he scans it. If he had done any of those drops up there, it would have easily been busted.
Yeah, but that's gonna lose tempo on basically the pressure he has onto SPX's main and now into his third, and SPX kind of transitioning into battlecruisers when he shouldn't. I mean, there's gonna be 2 battlecruisers, but like 2 battlecruisers is pitiful. It's not gonna do anything against this ground army. And in TVT, if you transition too early into battlecruisers, very often you just get run over on the ground. And you can see Dandy still has a massive bank to work with. Vultures are still not irrelevant in this situation because it's not like the units of either player are concentrated onto one side of the map, so you just move the vultures to where you want to bust. And look, he's gonna find some area here and he's gonna deny SPX's base here. And I mean, this is looking very quickly like a Dandy W, unless Dandy somehow loses steam. But look, he's gonna kill so many of these tanks. And SPX, I mean, what does he do from here?
Yeah, the brilliance of Dandy, the dropships at the bottom, I don't think actually have any units in them. So all he was doing was forcing SPX to have a lot of units in his main to defend the drop that won't help him at mid-right. So he finds an isolated base with a lack of defense, exploits it perfectly. Now, of course, there are 2 BCs here, but there's 3 Goliaths. They should be able to deal with them if microed correctly. And now, top right, which we thought for sure SPX is going to get, all of a sudden, he's losing mid-right. And now he's basically mined out. Where does he mine from? Top left is going to get busted pretty soon. He doesn't have a lot of SCVs up there.
Yeah, I mean, top left was such a blunder, dude. Like, it just is a command center sitting there for no reason when it could be top right. And you could have had SCVs there mining the gas and everything. So, I mean, actually, top left, it makes sense eventually to take it because you really only want to be mining the gas. Nice drop there from SPX. So, actually, finally getting some counterplay in this game. He's going to deny one of Dandy's important mining bases. Remember, Dandy's actually only on, what is it? I think the mineral only is probably close to being mined out. So he's only on 2 base. Dandy is gonna, but the thing is, Dandy has quite a lot of minerals to work with. He doesn't have the gas, so denying the gas is really important. But look at how pitiful these 2 Battlecruisers are. They can't even fight 2 Goliaths.
Yeah, 1 BC actually gets taken out, and I thought that SPX was going to wipe top middle and then also be able to support his top left base. But now with how easily mid-right got taken out, I think Dandy's just going to move to top left now. He doesn't have to really focus on mid-right anymore. There's not that much defense. There's like 5 tanks and 2 Goliaths. He's still near max. Meanwhile, SPX is going to lose all of these starports. He's also lost quite a bunch of depots there too, so he was supply block for a while. And look at Dandy, you can see that the yellow blob is heading to top left, and once that gets taken down, all SPX has left is really top middle, and there's no SCVs there because he can't transfer any.
Yeah, this is slowly but surely looking like a Dandy win. 30 minutes into the game, a real slugfest TVT, and SPX is gonna lose this base. He still mined a bit of gas from it, so that's definitely good for him if he somehow stabilizes into a late game here. But I mean, even if it goes to split map, they both basically have the same amount of bases at this point positionally. You can see how the map would be divided. And but the thing is, Dandy has basically cut off top right from SPX. He has a bunch of units in the middle of the map up to the mid right base. And SPX is broke at this point. He has no army. He's transitioning to battlecruisers, but he can't have more than 2 at this point because he only had 2 starports building them. Lost 1 starport and lost 1 of the 2 BCs those 2 starports made. So what does he do here? I mean, this is basically over, man.
There's no way to reinforce top right. Remember, I think he lost a couple of those drop ships to the Wraith. So actually the Wraith trade was fantastic for Dandy. Now he lost even more of the drop ships. He's going to be able to retake bottom right and mid right, but that's still only 2 bases. And now Dandy's found the weak point. There's only 4 tanks, 1 BC. He's just got so many tanks. This is just way too many for SPX to hold. He's trying to scramble to get into position. The tanks are doing a good job on the high ground, but there's just not enough.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh,
dude.
I can't believe this.
Pull the plug. That is really unfortunate, but yeah. Let's see. I mean, I hope he doesn't actually drop. Looks like maybe he did drop. Yeah, that's really unfortunate, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think this game was very clear.
Yeah, this game there's too much of an advantage for Dandy. He's up 70 supply, even if
there's
SPX,
no way. There's
no way. Like, there's no way for him to stop top middle getting denied, and then it's back down to like 4 base Terran versus 2 base Terran. There's just no hope here. So SPX unfortunately ends up dropping.
Yeah, that's really, really unfortunate. You hate to see that, but it does happen. That's just how StarCraft is, how online tournaments are sometimes. Internet isn't 100% reliable, but I think definitely that's going to be a win for Dandy after a mega 30-minute slugfest. So both players looking strong, but Dandy pulling ahead. I think just in general, Dandy has, I think just from watching that game, I think Dandy was definitely the better player there. And he's gonna actually advance out of this group very easily, completely smashing Laabuela and just kind of solid play against SPX. So Dandy's out of this group. We got our answer there. Dandy is definitely enough in shape to just breeze through this group, and that means that up next we're gonna have Voddy versus Laabuela in the losers match. But before we go to that, we're gonna take a quick break. Turrets, so the shuttle can be microed to basically Bonnet's heart, you know, to Bonnet's will. Doesn't look at Bonnet, and Bonnet has the best Reaver micro outside of Korea, bar none. I mean, he's gonna have 3 rain, like so many ACVs go down, and he actually kills the bunker in the meantime, so he's gonna go straight for the natural.
But he did get 3 tanks out, and the Reaver is kind of caught. That's a good scarab hit, but the tanks did split off. Reaver is still got a decent. Oh no! Now 2 tanks fall with 2 goons left over, and the Reaver is still alive.
And sometimes it can look like Terran can defend, but you gotta remember, like, he only has 1 turret, so these 2 Reavers can do whatever they want. It's so oppressive to play against. Oh my god, that Reaver didn't actually die. It's on 1 HP. Look at Bonnet's micro. It's absolutely bonkers. Kills both tanks, loses 1 Reaver finally. But he killed so many tanks.
Oh no. No, don't look, Terran players. Don't look.
Oh my god, like, finds the sweet spot between the 2 tanks. What a god. And
now he can start thinking about taking a 3rd Nexus. He can. Okay, goodbye tank. Both of these are gonna die. And that one's still alive. It has 1 health.
Really, it's honestly just a matter of time until Ultra just decides he's had enough and leaves. GG.
Now remember, there's no armory, so okay, but he's got to avoid the turrets. But he has speed now. Tank already, I think he's stuck now. Where does he go? Marines are coming. There's turrets everywhere.
Koget, he's very strong PvP, but very okay. Oh my god, that's so many SCVs going down. So Koget's economy is in tatters, and for him, he definitely has to do a lot of game-ending damage here with this push. He's getting into a prime position, and Favorite is just going for a counterattack.
Look at Protoss just trying suicide through all the mines. He actually cleared most of them out,
and now he's taking so much time getting into Koget's base, and now Koget actually gets to just keep his choke, which is super important. Meanwhile, Favorite is running back with a bunch of dragoons, but look, they have to funnel through this choke, and this choke is so tiny with the egg still up that there's just no way, and Favorite GG's.
Yeah, it was not bad, but he's got to be careful to not lose these Marines. Almost managing to pick off that weakened Marine. Look at that moving shot with an SCV. That's not something you see every day, especially with an SCV. But that's 3 Marines that just get wiped out by 1 Marine and 2 SCVs. And now Ultra's in big time trouble. Let's see how well he can trade. There we go. That's a good setup for Ultra, and he does come in, but it looks like Ultra went a bit far forward, and Koget has an overwhelming amount of Ultras now, and this might just be game over.
And yeah, Ultra's probably not going to die to this, but he might. There's so many units from Koget. I mean, this is high ground siege tanks, but Koget himself has 4 tanks. This is not good from Koget, though. He's going to lose all these tanks. All these units are going to go down.
But it looks like we do have an attempted bust out. There's not that many tanks, so he may actually be able to get out here.
And, you know, Ultra is still on that 2 base 5 factory production, so at this point, it doesn't matter. What's Ultra's compensation? He doesn't have drops. He doesn't have anything on Koget. Like, he's fighting this ground war, but Koget just has more production, more bases, and GG. This is going to be a really strong timing from Abuela, and he's going in. This is a really good engagement, actually, from Abuela, getting a couple onto the ramp, and the Sunken's doing work, though. They're both equal supply. Eonzerg has one more drone, and Abuela has a position here up on the ramp. So look at this arc, beautiful arc from Abuela. He's going to completely destroy this attack from Eonzerg, and Abuela has a really good timing. Look how many lings, there's only 1 second. Abuela is just chewing through Eonzerg's defenses. The Sunken's gonna go down. Eonzerg has more lings coming in. The 1 Sunken finishes. It's gonna be really close, Nyokin. You might die here. He has 1 Mutalisk out though, so that's gonna help with the DPS. And again, Abuela, he knows he has to go at some point, but Eonzerg is always in such a great defensive position. The Sunken taking so much of that ling DPS from Abuela's lings, and finally 1 Mutalisk is out. Now this Mutalisk, oh, he just GG's. Yeah.
This drone is very funny. He might actually try and sunken rush here if he can get it down. But that drone, there it is.
Dude,
there's the
oh my
colony.
god. Abuela was doing such a good job. Abuela here, he has to pull drones, but if he defends this, he's going to be at a second hatchery advantage, and he'll be able to completely flood Julia out of this game. But he can't lose too many drones, because otherwise he won't have the economy to actually produce, and he's going to open himself up to basically counter attacking from Julia. So he still has to stay back. Now Julia's taking some trades here. I don't know if this makes sense, because he knows that basically Abuela is on 2 hatch production, so
it looks like actually Abuela.
like, he can't lose drones. He can't lose drones. If Julia loses any drone here, it's going to be massive for Abuela. And Abuela is just pushing through these lings. The Sunken is actually doing a lot of damage. But if he gets 1 drone goes down, if he gets another drone, this is basically game over. I mean, it's already game over, really. Look, 12 drones against 6 drones, 5 drones only. And now, basically, Julia can't make anything. Yeah, and he just leaves.
Welcome back to BSL. We are into the losers match of Group E. It is going to be, actually I already forgot, it is going to be Voddy versus Laabuela. Dandy just took out SPX. Kind of an unfortunate ending, but the game was really epic. The drops back and forth. Defense from Dandy really great. SPX holding off a Doom drop, 6 drop ships followed up with a 7 drop attack, but just way too much macro from Dandy, looking so good. Now it comes down to who's going to make it out in second place. Our matchup, first off, is going to be Laabuela. We have to see how far Peter can go. We already know that Tyler Byron bombed out a bit early, but he looked pretty good. Laabuela, a bit questionable versus Dandy we saw earlier. He's going to need to step it up if he wants to take on somebody like Voddy, because Voddy and SPX are really good Terran players, and SPX looked really solid versus Dandy.
Yeah, Laabuela looked questionable in the first game he played. So I think hopefully this time around comes up with kind of a better showing. And versus Voddy, I mean, honestly, I feel like I have to give this a slight edge to Voddy, because he seemed much better than Laabuela in the first game. But we're gonna go into Optimizer. It's gonna be our first map for Laabuela versus Voddy. Let's get right into it.
In the top right, in the purple, as the Terran, we have IRK Voddy.
And in the bottom right, as this looks like a maroon Protoss, it is Laabuela. So
No maroon.
Yeah, maroon.
No, maroon's my dad's favorite color. He loves that color.
Oh yeah.
What's your go-to pick for colors in Brood War? You like gray? You like pink? I actually like pink quite a bit.
Yeah, pink's alright. Red's alright. But you know, I used to play with just whatever colors. Like I just shift tab on the mini map to get green and red. But besides that, I would play with whatever. But like recently, probably a couple months ago maybe, I've exclusively been playing Shift Tab like into green. I'd really like for Blizzard to add like you can change your color to whatever you want. You know, like in StarCraft 2.
Yeah, so one of the most well-known StarCraft players, Rhett, you know, he's told me that one of the things he doesn't like about some of the colors is, you know, maybe he's not completely colorblind, but I think he's colorblind for like red. So sometimes red, like the nuke dot in StarCraft 2, mixes in to some of the terrain and stuff. You can't see it. So it would be helpful to colorblind people like that to just be able to pick whatever color you actually want. I think that would be a great change. Now in this game we've got Laabuela going 12 Nexus. Meanwhile, Voddy, I thought it was going to be gasless, but instead it's going to actually be gasless. Not gasless. It's going to be 12 gas. Now this is a bit risky for Laabuela because top right versus bottom right optimizer, you know, with those back minerals, something like drop could all of a sudden be very scary. I think you can probably range the Nexus with vision out of range of goons. Also, the rush distances seem to be pretty close, so I actually think we may see an SCV Marine pull.
Yeah, I don't think this Nexus is long for this world. Voddy gets that first scout in. Now, you know, in 12 Nexus, it's really important to look at what is the Protoss doing. Is he going double gateway? It looks like double gateway here, cutting a lot of probes. And against double gateway, honestly, you don't even need to pull SCVs. I know this is something we both talked about in our theory crafting sessions on Discord, Naokin, but, you know, when Protoss goes 12 Nexus into double gate like this, look, Terran's already ahead in SCVs. If you actually just sit back and take an expansion and just make SCVs, you actually wind, you know, you're actually ahead in worker count by the time you put your command center is done. So, but that being said, he also has, yeah, go ahead.
This is actually a huge scout because Voddy continued to mine gas, and now the probe gets in here. He didn't actually scout and see the gas. I can't tell if the probe is alive. It looks like it is still alive, but I can't tell if Voddy pulled off of gas with a couple SC. Okay, he did. So he's actually hiding something. I think this is going to be proxy starport, and Laabuela is going to have no idea. But one of the things you can do versus, there it is, one of the things you can do as a follow-up with your 12 Nexus is just rally Zealots across the map, and we see that, and I think the Zealots are actually going to be what sees this incoming starport.
Yeah, but he also has a Vulture coming out, so Voddy's going to be okay. Again, I'm not a fan of the starport in your main. I think it's much better if you proxy it. Now, on these locations, the flight distance is going to be pretty short from the main to Laabuela's natural. Now, Laabuela is just donating Zealots here, and honestly, dude, Zero pointed out real quick, the Laabuela, he took the gas that only has 1,000 gas in it. So
oh, no.
that is you hate, if there's something you hate to see, it's that. And Laabuela, I don't even know what I'm watching, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this is really, he's losing a bunch. He's overmaking Zealots, made 3 Zealots, 4 Zealots, and really you only want to get 2 Zealots, then double Dragoon here is the standard build order. Finally the Dragoon comes out, but this Vulture already has 2 Zealot kills. It's killing another probe. This one Zealot still rallying Zealots to Voddy's base, but losing every probe, up to 2 probe kills, 3 probe kills. You can see Voddy is so far ahead, killed every Zealot now. Laabuela, the thing is, he's only gonna get 1,000 gas from that depleted, or from that geyser. So like he's already mined it out almost halfway there. He's gonna have to make another gas much sooner than you would anticipate. And that's only going to be for, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. You just pull. I'm going to be interested to see, Naokin, if he notices that gas is going to be depleted. Because if those 3 probes are mining a depleted gas the whole game, disaster.
He's not even mining with 3 probes. That even makes it even worse. Now, the counterattack with the goons is actually going to be pretty strong because of how many Marines actually got lost. But the micro from Voddy, I've been watching it the whole time. He took really good trades versus those Zealots while also microing the Vulture at the same time and getting probes. So he's done an amazing amount of damage. And even though the Zealot came in and saw the starport, I don't even know if Laabuela has realized what's actually going on. he may have just now realized that a dropship is actually across the map. You can see that there's no robo started, no nothing. It's just pure goons with range. And I feel like these tanks probably can range the Nexus from the low ground outside of range of the goons. And this might already just be doomsday for Laabuela. It looks like it's just trying to counterattack with goons, but it's only 3.
Yeah, I really like. Actually, so I get why he didn't proxy the starport now, because his plan was just to siege there, use the minerals as cover, and just kill the Nexus for free. And Laabuela, he knows this is desperate. Look, he doesn't even lose. You need to move the goons on top of the tank, but it doesn't matter. Oh my god, that was so close. It's not even gonna die. Is it gonna die? It actually goes down. So Laabuela loses 2 goons for no reason there, and these 2 tanks are gonna kill the Nexus for free. Meanwhile, I mean, the thing is, Voddy's base is okay. The last goon gets kind of cleaned up by SCVs. Voddy's base is definitely delayed, and so it's not like totally disastrous for Protoss. I mean, you can see probes count still ahead. He's taking that bottom left expansion because he actually has
no
way. Oh, he's still mining from it.
He has no idea that he's about to be broke. He's got 3 gate observer. Oh, he did take the top gas, so luckily he's got that mining. But yeah, he's not going to be having the gas income he thought he was going to have, because that one's already depleted. I see he's taking bottom middle, so that's great. Most likely going to be a double expand, but he's going to be very confused why he can't support 3 gate goon plus Reaver plus Observer on 2 guys. He's not mining with 3 at the top either.
He's taking very interesting expansion pattern here, taking the bottom 2 bases. So yeah, I mean, Laabuela, I don't think he's played this map before, but it looks like at least we're gonna get into kind of a mid game here. I don't think Terran's gonna be able to punish this quite right away. And the reality is that those bottom bases, I mean, obviously if vultures get in, it's going to be hard for Laabuela to defend, but it's not the most accessible kind of vulture map. I think if Voddy keeps his drop alive, he can find some really good damage. It's not clear how you immediately punish this though as Terran. Obviously Terran is a bit ahead from killing the Nexus, but not that far ahead. And it looks like, I mean, Protoss is kind of stabilizing in the most weird position ever. These 3 probes totally worthless though, so functionally he's down 3 probes, but still ahead in worker count, and his 3rd base is actually quite fast. Meanwhile, Voddy still on the 2 factories now, just now adding more factories, and he's building a lot of Goliaths and tanks and wraiths and drops. His gas is kind of being spent all over the place, so you can see that's why his factory count isn't actually as high as it should be, considering he's going for this committed 2 base play. I mean, 9 minutes in, we still don't have more than 2 factories, and it's only a 3rd factory here. So I'm not quite sure what Voddy is going for. This shuttle is kind of just chilling. And okay, Voddy is going to go on the right side of this map, but Laabuela doesn't even have a Nexus there. Only now Voddy notices the shuttle after a million years and pulls all the SCVs, but this shuttle
There's nothing in it.
There's nothing in it anyway, so like...
Yeah, there's nothing in it. I thought he actually knew because he didn't pull SCVs forever, and the Reaver never unloaded. So actually it did a little bit of damage, but now tanks are set up, and I was actually waiting to see if Voddy was going to do this where he sets up like 5 tanks and you just actually can't exit your base.
yeah.
Now he doesn't have any vision. Okay, there's the race for the vision. So now what does Voddy do? Like, he actually just can't leave now. This is 5 tanks. They will one-shot anything that comes out of the base.
Yeah. So what do we do from here now? Voddy, the thing is, yeah, he's kind of preventing the Protoss from moving around, but I mean, Protoss is happily mining away from 2 more bases. I don't think he's gonna mind it too much, loading up 2 tanks into the dropship. And what's the play here? It looks like Voddy's just gonna go for a 2-base push. He has a double armory going, science facility coming up. Okay, puts a couple tanks down because he wanted to go for a more efficient contain, but just kind of loses tanks for no reason there. And Yeah, I mean, this game,
Nothing going right for Laabuela. Citadel gonna block that goon. Probably gonna cancel that Citadel now, or he may kill off his gateway. Laabuela is doing a good job to keep his probe count going up. He's at 50 now, which is pretty good for 3 bases. Most Protoss these days stay around 60. You don't see them go up into counts like 70 or 80 anymore. They really try and trade as effectively as possible versus the Terran player. So overall, Laabuela is still in a good spot, especially if he can get this Nat Nexus. Looks like he may kill the Wraith too, another expensive unit. Didn't get the shuttle. So overall, what looked like a catastrophe in the opening stages of the game. Oh, a drop at bottom left, and there's a ton of probes here.
yeah, and the Panda Bear guy just kind of chilling there with the tanks, overseeing the destruction of this Protoss base. And yeah, I didn't notice that. There's actually a lot of droppable terrain here. So that's good to know. That's something we learned this cast. Unfortunately, Laabuela has a shuttle of his own, so going to be able to defend this now. Took a lot of damage, I think, dropped to 6 probes, 8 probes, something like that. So Laabuela's economy definitely not where it wants to be. And just now, Voddy getting into 7 factory. Laabuela finally able to get his Nexus up at his natural after making a shuttle and clearing out that initial contain. And at this point, we're basically back to normal after kind of the craziest early game I've seen on this map so far in BSL. And, you know, right now it's going to come down to whether or not Terran can pull off this 2-base timing push. He has everything going for him. He completely kind of stinted the Protoss macro now. Voddy did lose quite a few units in the process, lost a bunch of tanks, lost Wraiths. So a lot of that extra gas gone to waste in terms of optimizer. Also, just in general, not as many tanks as he would like. Now, if these Zealots get on top of these tanks, now, fortunately, Voddy with the quick reactions unsieges it quickly. The shuttle goes down, the Zealots go down. So, free donation there from Laabuela, getting a bit greedy. No Vulture speed yet. It's going to finish soon, so he's going to have that in time for the push. But here, Voddy is going for some Vulture harass. The problem is he's actually gearing up to actually push. So if he loses these vultures without doing any damage, it would be terrible for him.
I like how he moves in position right when Laabuela moves out of position. A very clutch gateway placement right there to prevent any further damage. That would have been absolutely terrible for Laabuela. Now Vulture's getting into the main too. Now look, he's killing off the Citadel with his goon, so he doesn't have any actual defense. Stargate and Templar Archive also just finished, so no arbors coming out. As a Terran player, when you see that, you're feeling very confident in your incoming push that you're not going to have to deal with stasis or a storm. Vulture drop into the third. He's everywhere, wiping a bunch of these pros, but as you're saying, when you're doing a push, that's a lot of vultures or a lot of supply to lose. So if he wants to go for a push, he needs to at least wait for the econ punishment to kick in. Another vulture run by into the third base. Now down below 40 probes is Laabuela. This is devastating damage.
Yeah, these vultures are paying for themselves. I mean, it doesn't matter that you're losing all this supply. Look at the economic damage. Laabuela is down to 30 supply and just now killing the gate that's completely mannered part of his minerals there.
The cannons are fighting the vultures, man, because they're shooting the gateway.
But, okay, the vultures finally get cleaned up. Still one more vulture wrecking havoc in Laabuela's main, and from a 50 probe economy down to a 30 probe economy, Laabuela is basically not functional anymore in terms of, you know, in terms of anything, in terms of his economy at least. He can't really afford units, he has to rebuild these probes, and this Terran push is incoming now. This Terran push has to win the game because, look, I mean, it's not that it has to win the game, but it's important for Voddy to do a lot of damage because he's about to be mined out at his main, at his natural. And this is the thing about kind of running around with vultures. Even if they do take damage or do damage, you're delaying your push. And the longer you delay the 2-base push specifically, even 3-base this is applicable for, is that you're mining out your base, right? So by the time you push, you're just not going to have any resources to work with. So it's going to really put you in a do or die situation. Now, Voddy correctly getting a command center up, this drop doing a lot of damage. So Voddy, I like his drop play. I actually didn't realize just how many ledges there are on this map. So Voddy playing to the map very beautifully here. He clearly has practiced on it because he knows of these spots. So Voddy's definitely in a prime position to take this game. But, I mean, is there a chance for Laabuela? Not if he suicides his army right now.
Well, there's a bunch of mines right next to the tank, so if he can get a drag, that would be fantastic. But as played, D-Matrix comes in. I think there's just way too many tanks, and he taps out. So Voddy's going to take game one, really picking apart Laabuela. We already saw Voddy had really good harassment in the nation, or not nation wars, in the race wars. I remember it specifically on Reap the Storm. The Vulture harassment was amazing. It seems like Optimizer was almost designed for his type of play. So a really easy victory. And Laabuela, again, kind of faltering in the initial stages of the build order. The Zealot did nothing. Well, actually, it did a decent amount of damage to the Marines, but Voddy handled it well, counterattack with the Vulture, and then the drop killed the Nexus at the Nats so easily.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that game. Kind of gave me a heart attack for a second. Laabuela's build was very interesting. Unfortunately, I think he needed to maybe, I don't know if it's tournament nerves or what, but like that, taking that gas was, I mean, at the end of the day, it didn't really change much, but clearly not experienced on that map. And Voddy kind of, I wouldn't say cleanly getting that win, because Laabuela is still kind of, despite that crazy early game, stabilized. So I think Laabuela still has some chances against Voddy. It's not clear that it was kind of a dominant victory. The one thing is, though, Laabuela kind of left before the fight even finished, and that's not a confidence move. So anyway, game 2 is going to be on Neo Sylphid, Laabuela versus Voddy. Laabuela must win this to stay in the tournament.
In the bottom left. Oh, no. Yeah, in the bottom left, in the orange. He has to win, otherwise he's gone. It's Laabuela.
And in the bottom right, the Swedish Terran player, it is IRK Voddy. In the, what is that? That's like yellow or tan or something. That's tan, I guess.
I think it's just yellow. No. You know, okay, well, you know, it's hard to see on our screen, maybe so it's a little bit blurry. Now, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, feels like I've been looking forever, you know, for upcoming Terrans, or at least Terrans that I don't recognize. And I noticed that Voddy's in IRK, and he's obviously very good. He's playing really good in the race wars he's playing here. Now, Father actually has improved his skill too. So there's two Terrans that have upped their skill quite a bit, or at least, I don't know if Voddy upped his skill, but what I'm saying is two up-and-coming Terrans, at least to me. Who on the ladder do you have your eyes on where you're thinking like, oh, well, this guy's got potential? Because to me, Voddy is someone that I didn't even know about, and he's, you know, made it into BSL and looking like he may make it to the round of 16.
Yeah, on the ladder, Voddy definitely comes to mind. It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of people I feel like would probably point to someone like Kare, but Kare's also been around for a long time too, and he played StarCraft. The thing is, Kare has played StarCraft too, so he's not technically a Brood War player. So I think Kare definitely looks strong. We haven't seen him play just yet, right? So that's going to be upcoming. I'm curious to see how he does. Besides Kare and Voddy, I mean Striker, right?
Yeah, he's up and coming, but he's not Terran. I agree with Striker. Striker's made a significant improvement over the past year or year and a half. It's
any Protosses you can think of, like, that are kind of in the same boat? Oya, I guess.
Oya has improved. He would be my go-to, but I think Oya and Striker are the ones that I noticed the most.
Yeah. But I think Voddy and Kare are like in the same boat, but I feel like Kare's played in previous BSL seasons, so
yeah, he has played in previous BSLs.
Yeah, is it fair to say he's an up-and-comer? I don't know.
No.
Okay. That's it, right? That's it, just these three players, right?
Yeah. So it looks like I'm still looking. I still can't find them. They don't exist. Except for Father and Voddy. At least I found Voddy here, so I can rely on him. But as far as this game goes, we got Gasless coming in for Voddy. Meanwhile, Laabuela, he's playing pretty standard. I am curious what he's going to follow up with, because every game so far has been aggro. Okay, there it is. Yeah, there's the aggression. One rallied Zealot coming across the map. He's pulled off of gas, so actually it's going to be a Nexus follow-up.
Yeah, so far I actually like this much more from Laabuela, actually looking like a standard build order here. Now Voddy gets to see that there's no prosing mine, but he has to deal with the Zealot pressure in front. Now the thing is, you can't just rally a Zealot like this all the time. It's too late. You really, if he kept that Zealot with the Dragoon, that might have been more damage, but kind of, it was gasless though, so Voddy deals with that very easily. And that's just amazing for Voddy. He's going to be able to get his factory going at the, just put down his factory. He has a bunker with 4. That's a lot of Marines, though. 4 Marines, so not quite at the SCV count he would like to be at. Definitely cut a bit to get those 4 Marines into the bunker. But now he's ultra safe against a lot of things. And it's all going to depend on whether or not he can re-scout and see this Nexus. I know he got into the main, and he saw that Protoss wasn't mining any gas, so you can probably assume that this is going to be a Nexus follow-up. But at the same time, I mean, Laabuela did choose to go for the Zealot first. He would have a bit more gas than usual. It's very possible that it could be some random follow-up after that, but obviously Voddy doesn't quite know. He's going to get the rescout off probably, but I'm assuming Voddy just assuming this is an expansion because he's going straight for the Academy, no eBay.
Yeah, second factory coming in, so he's looking to put on some pressure. We see this sometimes as a follow-up to gasless expand, but you can never really tell exactly what it's going to be until you see the first couple units pop out. It can be Vulture run by, it can be 3 to 5 tank follow-up, it can be a ton of tanks coming out, like 9 tanks and then following up with a 5 fact. So we'll have to wait and see what Voddy is going to opt for. Just simply based on the games that I've seen of him, feel like 100% this has to be like initial tank into like 4 Vulture harassment type play, because that seems to be right up his alley. Now the SCV got off a crucial scout, finding the Robo. We did see earlier one of the players go for 2 base Citadel, so it's imperative that you confirm whether it's Citadel or Robo. No 3rd base for Laabuela, which is kind of surprising because he's been greedy all day.
Yeah, Laabuela looks like he's just going for a very standard build order, and Voddy getting that armory very quickly here, so I doubt this is going to be a kind of 3 tank push. This looks like just very bog standard armory timing, though I think the build is a bit, if you're going to do this, you might as well go the factory, then armory, then factory, but alas, it doesn't really matter. Functionally, it's basically an armory finishes at 6 minutes, so very fast armory. Now, he doesn't quite yet have siege mode. I don't even think he researched siege mode. You can tell, you can look at the replay just now starting siege mode, so that's actually really terrible for Voddy. He's going to take so much damage onto this bunker. You can see he's frantically repairing it now. He has 2 tanks and 4 Marines, so if he micros this correctly, he's going to be fine. Laabuela kind of overstepping his boundaries there, losing 1 Dragoon, so not gonna get immediately punished for the siege mode. Now if Laabuela had went for something like a fast Reaver off this Reaver with 2 gate, Terran would be dead at this point. But okay, Laabuela kind of bleeding Dragoons, and I like these pylons, basically scouting for a possible, 4th base, I guess. Those aren't really 3rd base locations, but also drops. So but yeah, Voddy kind of unlucky. I don't know. A lot of times forgetting that siege mode there is a crucial mistake, man.
Yeah, it's game ending, and the micro was actually really amazing from Voddy, because as soon as the Dragoons came in, he instantly moved the tanks while also moving the SCVs into position to body block. And during that, some of the SCVs were actually getting hit, and he was repairing the bunker and repairing the SCVs to make sure they didn't die, while also repositioning the tank. So the micro from Voddy is on point. A lot of times that's, as you said, a huge mistake, sometimes game-ending damage. Observer comes in here, and all day long we've seen the Observer get popped, and it's always led into 7 fact timing. So if I was Laabuela, I'm queuing up like several more, because I want to know exactly what this is, because again, he's just left in the dark.
No, you're talking about, I got my eye out for these Terran players on the ladder. Well, I've got my eye out for these Terran players in BSL who are gonna take their 3rd command center at a normal time. Like, it's every time. I was gonna say this earlier today, actually. we've seen TVP the most, I think, so far in this tournament. So many TVP games. And so many Terran players are just opting for this 2-base super huge push style. None of them are actually playing kind of the very standard 3-base play. And it's just, it's unfortunate to me because I mean, it is definitely a much harder style to pull off. But I'd like to see it more as opposed to these really strong 2-base pushes. With that being said, these strong 2-base pushes, they're easier to execute. And as a Protoss player, they're harder to stop. So I can see the reasoning, but it's interesting how the non-Korean TVP style is very consistent. I mean, everyone seems to be playing like this. I mean, I think maybe Cryok was the only player that we actually saw. I mean, Terra one game today on Polypoid, which is an impossible map to do a timing on, actually went for like a 3-base play. But besides that, maybe Cryok, but I don't know if you can really count that as standard because he was just getting all in nonstop like Ghost Dark.
Yeah, I also noticed that is generally when you start seeing a trend of the same build over and over and over across multiple players, that means recently a pro started using it. But from what I know, I don't think that Flash or Light or them have been using this quite often, but maybe they have. Anyways, it looks like Voddy wants to get into a better position, so he's going to move out right now with his tanks, but they're kind of caught out. They're not in the wow, that's a ton of goons at the top. This is a big misstep from Voddy. First couple tanks go down. He may end up wiping the entire tank line. Sure, he's going to lose a lot of goons here, but to take out that many tanks, well, now that he only got about 5 out of the 7, I don't know if that was exactly worth, but if he had gotten all 7 of them, for sure that would have been a good trade. What I'm mostly worried about is when I saw the Citadel timing for Laabuela, it was about 8 minutes. I don't even know if Temple Archive is done or if Stargate is done. Okay, Temple Archive is done, but where's the Stargate? I remember in a Flash video, he was saying how you need Stasis and Templar Storm to actually stop this push, but later on modified it to only needing one of them. Now, Storm, I think, is actually better than Stasis versus this type of play. You can actually kill the units instead of just delay. Oh, what is that? That is an add-on on the science facility. Is this nukes? It is nukes. We have nukes. Something that you never see. Now, I don't know if this is actually going to be nukes or if this is going to be for lockdown, because in order to use nukes, you have to actually have a silo, which doesn't exist just yet.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be for lockdown now. I mean, lockdown against recall. This is the favorite cookie cut. This is the theory craft you see most in Twitch chat, always. Where's the ghost? Where's the ghost for lockdown on Arbiter? Well, we're going to get to see it today. I mean, is he going to go for nukes? Maybe there's going to be a nuke silo on this third command center. Voddy, kind of a hilarious guy. Even against me, he did some clowny stuff when he was in a winning game, and he likes to just to me, I feel like I think Voddy and Oya are probably kind of good friends. They're both in IRK, and they're both kind of like those players that they just like to spice things up, like in games and stuff, and really clown on people. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a nuke silo on this third command center. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to be the case. Otherwise, clearly, that covert ops could also just honestly have been a misclick somehow. But I mean, that's really hard to misclick. But it doesn't look like he's researching close. Okay, so not going to be a nuke, but he's also not researching lockdown. Obviously, you don't really have that much gas to work with, which is the biggest reason why we don't see Ghost at this time. Look, he only has 5 factories getting his vessels out. Only now his 6th factory is coming. So yeah, interesting covert ops, but okay, he's making.
There's a ghost. There it is. It just got queued up. So a lot of people do theory craft lockdown, and 10 years ago, I did experiment. There are situations where lockdown is pretty good. For example, if you cannot get EMP, lockdown is not a bad choice. Also, if you're way behind, a lot of Protoss players don't hallucinate their Arbiter. So if you can put Ghost in key positions and lock it down as it coming in, that's a real move to buy time, at least to get into the later stages of the game. Now, okay, there it is. There's the lockdown. But ghosts are very expensive, and as soon as they get hallucination, this type of play all of a sudden can't work anymore. That's the main drawback to Ghost. Other than that, if you could tell which Arbiter is the actual real one without having to click it, I think somebody told me that you can find out which is the real one if you can check their armor. I don't remember exactly, but that's the entire reason you cannot go Ghost. In general, if you can land the lockdown, I mean, it's amazing, but it's just so hard to do. Voddy's going in for some more harassment with these vultures. It looks like he's just trying to build up the super comp that we already saw Kryak go for by trading out these vultures, but he's giving Laabuela a lot of time to build up his army, Arbiters and Storm and 5 bases. I mean, that's hard to deal with. So it feels like this is kind of a misstep from Voddy, but at least he does have the powerful upgrades to fall back on if something goes wrong.
Yeah, Laabuela a bit undersaturated at his main. I think the big problem with lockdown here is you really only want lockdown for recalls. It's kind of hard to use lockdown in the middle of a fight, especially because ghosts are not flying units. So they can't just kind of like go ahead of your army and guarantee that the Arbiter doesn't get the stasis off. And the other problem is, even if for recall on this map specifically, the Arbiter is coming in from ledges. Like here, top side of the map comes in from the ledge. If it just instantly recalls on top of the depots there, you don't have time to lock that down. I mean, maybe, I guess you could fly. No, actually, no, you can fly a base, or like you can fly a building over and lock down the Arbiter as it comes in. It just seems so sketchy. I really am curious to see if we're actually going to get to see lockdowns pop off, at least as recall defense, but it doesn't seem like it because Laabuela, his Arbiters are so late. Look, it's 15 minutes and he has one Arbiter which doesn't even have enough energy for any spell. So by the time recall is available, I mean, the Terran push is going to be coming, and it's going to be coming really hard.
Well, 4th base is going up for Voddy, so everything looking pretty okay for him. +2, I think, is about to kick in. Probe count for Laabuela is pretty good, 60 probes for him. That's kind of trendy these days. You want to have a more powerful standing army to overwhelm the Terran. Meanwhile, Voddy matching the probe count with his SCV count only at 63, but here he comes. That's a lot of grouped up tanks, but I don't think there's actually enough okay, there's no stasis. There's no stasis, so it looks like it's just pure gateway man trying to barrel in, but there's no supporting cast for the tanks, so actually he gets a lot of tanks here and may end up denying mid-right. You can see Voddy had vultures at the left side of the map, now scrambling to get here in time. Both of the players' supplies plummet, but with Laabuela having 5 bases, I'm okay with him losing this amount of units.
Yeah, and Voddy somehow, first of all, Laabuela attacked there with not enough energy on his Arbiter, so fortunately for him though, Voddy did not have units in position to cover for his tanks, but Voddy had that vessel with 200 energy on it, and the D-Matrix that he got 2 D-Matrixes off on tanks. They soaked up so much of that damage while the Protoss army kept getting shelled, and Voddy actually had a 15-minute and a half, 16-minute +3 upgrade, which is the reason why these Protoss units got absolutely obliterated. Now, Voddy does not have armor upgrades, which isn't really ideal. I mean, that just means that the Protoss units can actually kill Terran units. Sometimes in late game, you know, and Protoss upgrades aren't even that good right now, but sometimes in late game, once the Terran gets up to 3-2, 3-3, not only do they kind of blast Protoss units out of existence, but they also tend to not die that much. But because he doesn't have any armor upgrades, these mech units, if Laabuela gets on top of Voddy's armies, he's going to be able to very quickly dispatch of them. Like, he has +2 upgrades on his Protoss units. So honestly, the mech army is going to be a bit of a glass cannon with these upgrades. Now, obviously, +3 is the most important upgrade, but you know, it's not trivial that Voddy does not yet have armor upgrades. But Voddy establishing this base, usually you see Terran going for the mineral only. It's a bit easier to defend. So the fact that Voddy actually took this base is very nice for him in the long run, because it is a harder base to take. Now all he has to do is play for that mineral only and then play for the bottom left expansion. He has very clear expansions that he can take. But once he does kind of expand to the more bottom left side of the map, He's going to open himself up a bit more. The counterattacks the mid-right. Meanwhile, Laabuela already has the main at 12 o'clock. He's taking the natural. I really like Laabuela's position. You can see he has all the bases he would like to take. But you can see exactly how this map can be considered to be a Terran map. It's really hard for Protoss to expand past these bases. And Terran can just kind of take one base at a time. And it doesn't look like Laabuela is actually threatening any recalls. And when Protoss chooses to not go for recalls, the game is much easier for Terran to play with. But hold that thought, Laabuela is coming in.
Here we go. Arbiter coming in, but oh, he locked it down. So that's no stasis, and now this is going to be a horrendous trade for Protoss. Tanks were already in position. Look how fast all the Zealots instantly die. Voddy went down to 170 supply. Protoss down to 150 despite going through all of his gateways. So a huge loss for him. But now lockdown has finally been revealed. And I'm just thinking back to the Boa game where Boa had a massive lead but was never able to find an angle to attack. He just relentlessly tried to bust Terra, but it ended up, eventually happening, but it was a real struggle. So what are you looking at on this map that potentially opens up an opening for Laabuela? What can he exploit? Because with the Ghost mixed in now, recall can't happen as long as there's vision, and he's all set up across like this tiny quadrant of bottom right.
I mean, the problem with Laabuela is that he has no arbiters ever. His arbiters were late. Now that was his only arbiter in that fight. He should be up to 6 arbiters at this point, in which case, what are you going to do? Lock down every single arbiter? Like, you can't really reliably cast lockdown and EMP and position your units properly. But okay, finally Laabuela has 2 arbiters. I think he's on double Stargate production, so he just needs to kind of build his arbiter count up. It's really so important, this matchup, and he started so late and he lost so many arbiters that I think it might be too late. Look, Voddy feeling confident enough to push against the Protoss army, and Laabuela is coming into the 6 o'clock position, but he's gonna box himself in here. Now if he just sits here, Voddy's gonna be able to siege his tanks and kind of cut off Laabuela's escape route. Like, Voddy's getting in position and Laabuela just goes for it. There's no mines to buffer for the tanks, and Laabuela gets basically the best engagement he could ask for, but still Voddy has so many tanks in this fight. Lockdown goes down onto the arbiter, and I think honestly Laabuela took a really good trade there. It kind of killed half the tanks at least. And but Voddy obviously is going to be okay with that. He's going to unsiege here, going to rally more units, and Laabuela has to frantically macro in more units. But the big thing is, where are these arbiters, dude?
Well, we saw 4, but it looks like 2 of them at least got taken out. We did see 1 get locked down, 1 got EMP'd. I don't know where the other 2 went, but without arbiters, there's no way you can fight a Terran army that is like 75% tanks. It seems like there's like 30 tanks for Voddy, and he just consistently replenishes them. Now he does need to start getting another base, because sure, 4-base Terran is great, but this is Sylphid where the 3rd base really isn't a full base. So really right now he's only mining on 1 base, whereas Laabuela still is on like 3 or 4. Mineral only at top right. I mean, that's great if you can get it. Here comes another attack. I don't think that Arbiter has stasis, so he needs to be careful to not attack into this. There's so many tanks right now. Those ghosts are still alive too. So they're just moving around with the army, moving with the vessel. And he's actually been using lockdown during the fight, which is very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, and Voddy with a very interesting kind of expansion pattern here, taking the middle only to the top right. It's really nice because now look, he can push to 12 o'clock while simultaneously defending his mining bases, and he's going to expand to these bases after he kills them. And Laabuela, I mean, is he in position to take bottom left? He should be expanding bottom left right now. It's hard for Terran to kind of be out on all sides of the map. Laabuela going for a nice counterattack here. There's only 3 tanks behind a couple of mines. They're going to be quickly dispatched. So Laabuela is actually getting in here. Nice lockdown. Voddy, though, in time, reinforcing with his main army from his high ground expansion, and now more tanks popping out from his main. So he's going to have enough units here to push back the Protoss army. And what does he do from here? Where does he go counterattack? I'm assuming he's just going to go back to 12 o'clock, but this is looking really bad for Laabuela.
Yeah, he's going to lose his entire army again. Voddy is just trading so well, and that looks like a move command almost. All the goons are going to fall. The funny part about the Arbiters being locked down is I think with 2 ghosts, you can actually just straight up kill them as long as they're attacking it, of course. Looks like we may finally have a recall with that Arbiter heading towards the bottom side. He relocks it down again. Mineral only is being attacked though, so that's going to be a denied base for Voddy, and Voddy's starting to get very low on minerals. Meanwhile, Laabuela still has okay mining. He's even taking his own third base, or the natural third base of mid left.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is it's really hard to judge, man. Like, especially if Laabuela actually manages to cancel this command center, or basically deny this base, but Voddy in time kills off all those units. Now Voddy needs to push and kill 12 o'clock so he can expand there, because he's quickly running out of bases to mine. I mean, he's only really functionally mining out of 2 bases right now, the mineral only and the mid right base. Everything else is mined out, so he needs to kill this base. He needs to take it and then kind of mine from it. But while he commits a lot of his units to this top side of the map, Laabuela will be able to kind of counterattack to the bottom right side. But like, I like this from Laabuela. He's clearing out a couple mines. The thing is, if Laabuela gets kind of in between bottom right and top middle, he's going to be able to deny reinforcements and kind of engage the smaller Terran army. But instead, I feel like the recall goes off. This is massive, Naokin, because if Voddy loses all his production, then all he has left is that main force in the middle of the map, and he's gonna have to win the game with that. But he has a couple of units coming back to defend. Is this gonna be enough? 3 tanks, a couple of vultures. I mean, this is gonna do a lot of damage. My god, tanks just absolutely obliterate goons. But if Laabuela pays attention, he's gonna clean this up, and there's definitely not enough. Meanwhile, Voddy is counterattacking to 12 o'clock, and Laabuela is responding here. Now remember, this whole thing is going down while Voddy is basically losing all his production. So I think this is slowly getting to be a good situation for Laabuela, but he has so at 12 o'clock.
It's still alive in the main, so he's actually just going to deny reinforcements. Meanwhile, that is a ton of tanks at top left. He cannot attack that with his standing army. But denying all of the production is crazy. Double lockdown onto a couple of these Dragoons. But if he can get on top of these tanks with these Zealots, which it looks like he will, he's actually going to clean up half of the army. There's still another half of tanks below this army that the Goons, oh, that's just it, GG. So Voddy taps out, one time being overextended, and instantly gets punished from Laabuela. I was getting flashbacks to the Boa game where Boa had all the money in the world, but could never engage the army. And Voddy had a better army. It was almost pure tank. Yet the recall drew everything out of position, and he could finally find the right angle.
I've got a big question mark on top of a lot of these GG timings today. People are just leaving the game so early. I can see why Voddy. I was like, who left there? Was it Voddy? Was it Laabuela? It's not really clear, because I mean, Voddy was still mining from mid right, top right. Like, yes, he lost a lot of his production, and probably a lot of his units got killed there. But I mean, he still had like a control group and a half of tanks kind of wailing at stuff in the middle of the map. And he had like a bank, I think, of a couple, at least 1,000 minerals or something like that. Maybe I wasn't seeing well, but I feel like you could still play it out from that situation and get a couple vaults. I don't know. Kind of premature GGs. We've been seeing them all day, but has been a long day. It's getting pretty late in Europe, that's for sure. So Laabuela, aka Peter, coming through with the equalizer. We're gonna go into game 3 decider match to see who gets to play SPX, right, in the last chance match. But man, that was a close one, and the next game is gonna be on Eclipse.
Yeah, Eclipse, a pretty good Terran map, I think. Laabuela botched the game versus Danny. I'm a little bit surprised that Voddy didn't pick Reap the Storm because of how well he played on it in the Race Wars. He looked really good. Sure, Eclipse is another good harassment-based map. The mains are pretty open. So let's see, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Voddy, or is it going to be Laabuela to go on into the decider match, really, to face SPX? So in the top right, in the green, or the teal, we have our Terran player. It is Voddy.
And in the bottom left, the orange Protoss, it is Laabuela. Yeah, orange versus green. Protoss versus Terran. Eclipse. Gypsy and Nyoka casting. Zero observing. This is BSL 10, ladies and gentlemen. And big thanks to all our sponsors, Blizzard, Wikipedia, Esports Fun, once again. And yeah, these games, today has been a long day, man, and we still have a best of 3 ahead of us after this game, but not getting ahead of ourselves. Still going to be a decider game here between Voddy and Laabuela, and at this point, who do you think is feeling more confident?
I think Laabuela is finally feeling good because he had a pretty good game. He got all his bases up and running. He denied some of the attacks from Voddy. I feel like he's going to be feeling pretty good about that one, but at the same time, Voddy, I mean, he was decimating the army over and over and over. It just comes down to, did he realize that maybe overextended a little bit too much? As long as he doesn't think something other than that, where he's just like, oh, I got outplayed or something, I think he should still be in a good position. The lockdown was pretty cute. Never get to see that ever. I personally like lockdown for defensive uses, not in the middle of battle like that. So that was very interesting and had good success. Actually, every time, did you even see one stasis go off? Because I don't remember a single stasis going off.
Honestly, I don't even remember arbiters being in the game.
Yeah, they just got nullified twice by EMP and like 5 times by the lockdown. Like the lockdown usage was actually really good. So Voddy is impressing me quite a bit because it's hard to control units like that while also macroing, and he was doing a good job. And he hit his +3 timing really fast. So to pick Eclipse, I think, is a wise choice. Split the map versus somebody that you know you're going to trade effectively versus. And then Protoss doesn't have, that 8 base econ. Like you cannot get 8 bases on this map. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, this map is interesting because, a lot of 2-player maps, like, yeah, it's stuff like match point, stuff that have like very fewer bases. You can just look at it and be like, yeah, this is good late game for Terran because they get to just split the map. But on this map, I mean, Protoss has compensation at the bottom right expansions. Usually Terran likes to expand to top middle and 12 o'clock, then 1 o'clock, then kind of top left. And when they expand like that, I mean, Protoss can just expand to the bottom right. Now, interestingly, Laabuela, what was the first map these guys played on? Oh, Optimizer, right. It was Optimizer, because I remember it seems like the last game we casted, Laabuela was going proxy gate, so I think he's actually hiding a pylon there. It's not a proxy for anything, which is nice because, look, Voddy's SCV was in Laabuela's base.
Okay, never mind. Sorry. I thought there was a cancel on range.
Yeah, that would be nuts, but it doesn't look like Laabuela is interested in actually going all in. And Voddy pulling a bunch of just SCVs and Marines off. Does he know? Okay, he knows there's a pylon here, but Laabuela, I think, never intended on proxying anything. It's gonna be annoying if he does lose this pylon for free, which might happen, because what's Laabuela gonna do to defend this? Can't run Dragoons out on the map because the Vulture's already out, so he has to kind of keep at least one Dragoon back. And unfortunately, this proxy pylon is actually going to backfire a bit on Laabuela because it gets scouted so easily. He has to remake the pylon much earlier, but besides that, everything's looking very standard here.
Well, luckily for Abuela, he ended up seeing the Vulture move out. It actually got glitched on the ramp. That's why he saw it. So a bit unlucky for Voddy, but because of that, he's not going to take any damage to his probe line. He does lose his pylon, which is... It does hurt for sure. Also, the Goons could have instantly countered, but would have had to deal with the Vulture on the other side of the map. So that could have gotten dicey real quick. So what's the response going to be from Laabuela? Because already this build is really jacked up. Generally seeing like a 420 Robo is pretty standard, but I didn't see that when we got to look at the main. We may just see Citadel follow up if the Robo is too late. So not too sure just yet, but what we did see on Voddy's side of the map was multiple vultures coming out. Now range goons are going to have a field day on this bunker, and I don't see anything repairing it. There we go. Finally going to put a couple SCVs down. So for now, he's okay, but it's a bit dicey when you build in a lot of vultures like this.
Even has 5 Marines, making a bunch of vultures, which is, I just, did he research mines? Did he research speed? Like,
no, he got mines, and now he's going to move out. He already laid a couple mines behind the goons, and they're going to intercept these mines probably. Oh, well, these are dead goons. Goodbye. There's 1 down, 2 down. This is exactly what you want to happen as Terran. Mid-right, he's going to try and put a Nexus down, but after losing 3 goons like that, you're not going to be confident to put down a Nexus that fast. Luckily, he did go 3-gate goon or 3-gate follow-up, so he will be able to pump out a decent amount of goons. He cannot have this Nexus be denied.
I mean, he can't even throw it down, to be honest. Laabuela, kind of early game going completely disastrous for him once again. The proxy pylon got killed, which is annoying because you just have to rebuild it, which is kind of offsetting all your timings. And on top of that offset, he also lost the first 2 Dragoons he made. So now he's kind of reset in terms of his unit count. He has to make more units before he expands. Look, he's on 3-gate and only 4 Dragoons still. Very close in supply with the Terran player. And I think still, he still has, he's still going to play kind of a standard game here. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for an expansion. It's just going to be later. And I feel like, again, this is, Voddy's definitely in a good spot. I'm interested to see. It doesn't look like he's going for a command center because it definitely would have been up by now. 7 minutes in. He could still go for a command center. I don't know. What do you think Voddy should be like? How do you capitalize on this when you know Protoss is just a bit behind? You just keep going with your build. What do you like doing?
I think you just expand here. I mean, these vultures just. It feels like minor damage because, oh wow, he just killed 2 pros, one at mid left and bottom middle, but it's actually massive amounts of damage. This third base is mega delayed, and there's no attempt to even take another third base as Laabuela. So the only move he can do is to move into 2-base arbiter, but this is a delayed 2-base arbiter. So like, I'm not scared about this at all. So I'm just taking a third base and going with my normal 2-1 timing. At worst, you're going to be facing 1 stasis. There's nothing really to worry about as a Terran facing 1 stasis. I think going for a 5 or 6 fact follow-up is a huge mistake if Voddy ends up going for it. A +1 follow-up. If it's the 7 fact timing, I'm okay with it simply because of how much success players have been having with it today. Observers have been getting killed every single time they come into the base, and it's so punishing because, again, Laabuela doesn't know what this is. 3 fact doesn't necessarily mean that this is a timing. This could just be you want to definitely secure taking your third base.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a fan of Voddy's build here. I feel like he definitely could have put down the command center if he wanted to go for a command center. If not, it looks like he's getting the starport and a 4th factory before his command center. So it looks like to me he's gearing up for a 2-base play once again. But last game he was also gearing up for a 2-base play and used that to just take a delayed third. But I mean, you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal if he does take a delayed third, especially this game, because Protoss is so far behind, and getting these getting the factory count up, especially on a map like Eclipse where there's a lot of ground to cover between your natural and your third as Terran. It is nice because it allows you to defend a lot of busts better. But this is, you know, rapidly as the seconds tick by and as Voddy keeps building stuff in his 2 bases, it looks like it's going to be a 2-base play, an actual committed 2-base play. And, you know, just don't think that's the best way of taking advantage of what happened in this game. But again, we've seen this earlier today where Terra did the 2-base against Boa and completely smashed 2-base arbiter, right? If you get that EMP off, it's so crucial. So this in general is just, it's probably the strongest, like execution wise, it's the strongest build Terran has against Protoss. It's just very hard 2-base builds because they're easier to execute than your kind of normal 3-base stuff, and they're very hard for Protoss to hold. So I think in general, I guess this is the go-to bread and butter of most Terran players in this tournament. And we can see he's actually getting ready to push out onto the map, but I doubt this is for a push because he only has +1 and his +2 is nowhere near done.
Yeah, he's just trying to alleviate a little bit of pressure in front of his base, get into a better position. Second armory is also spinning, so 2-1's coming in. This is setting up for about a 13-ish minute attack from Voddy. So really, Abuela's on the clock. His first arbiter is going to come out at around, oh man, goons falling left and right. You can see how fast they just instantly die. Tanks in siege mode. First arbiter is going to come out around 11:10. That means he'll have 2 arbiters out at 13 minutes if he insta-queues up the second one, but not going to have more than 1 stasis available. And Terran, like I said, not scared of 1 stasis, just they aren't, unless you hit an entire glob of tanks like they're all clumped up. So this is going to be really hard for Laabuela to actually end up stopping. I think he needs to take a 4th base, like actually just get his econ rolling, because we know that at 13 minutes, Voddy should be attacking. So you need to have as much econ as possible, as many gates as possible.
Yeah, and it looks like Voddy is going to go for that 3 base here. And at the end of the day, like, I feel like when you go for this delayed 3rd base, it doesn't really show, like, it doesn't really change your timing in terms of the push, but definitely once the push happens, it starts showing that the Terran's economy just isn't where it should be. You can see he's only on 5 factories here. It's going to be very hard for him to go up to that 9 factory count. And not only that, but once he pushes, like, his main and his natural is going to be very close to being mined out. So all that Protoss has to deal with is that initial push. It's going to be very hard for Terran to kind of reinforce or rebuild an army, or even take a 4th command center behind it. So in general, I think that's what the weakness is of this delayed 3rd, though it's not really going to affect his actual 2-1 timing. He's going to still come out with a really strong army at 13 minutes, 13 and a half minutes with the vessels and 2-1. But he's just not going to have the same economy, the same infrastructure behind it to support it. So all Laabuela has to do is kind of defend. And honestly, on Eclipse, you know, Eclipse, it's actually a very hard map to do a 2-1 timing on. First of all, it's really hard to kind of attack through the high ground in the middle, bottom right of the map. And so when you attack through the middle of the map, Protoss has a lot of room to go for counterattacks, or a lot of room to kind of position themselves to meet your army very well. So I think in general, it's very tricky to make a strong timing attack work on this map. I think in general, it's much better to just go for a fast 3rd than a 4th and go for like a longer game. But Voddy is going to definitely be committed to doing something with this 2-base push, and we have to see if Laabuela is going to be able to stop it.
2-1 is done for the Terran player, so expect to move out any second now. Recall's about finished, and the Arbor, if it was instantly started, actually has enough energy for recall. So that movement to the right side of the map, if that's an Arbor, he might go in. Oh, okay, it's an observer. He might go in as soon as he sees Terran move. He already had success with Sylphid going for a recall. So I wouldn't blame it if he just, as soon as we see the blob start moving, like right now, just go for it. There's a lack of turrets. There is no turret ring for Voddy right now. He really skimped out on it. Vultures actually find a complete surround on these goons. Trading vultures for goons, that's amazing. Now, I see an orange dot moving. Looks like we're going to the natural. Recall incoming, but is there enough? No, there is enough turrets, but that is a huge.
This is going to be a disaster for Laabuela because, yeah, now look, his army is actually just stuck there, and it's just going to get completely cleaned up, and it barely killed anything. I mean, it did kill 20 SCVs, but I mean, who cares? Because Terran, honestly, like, you can just start rebuilding SCVs, and he's taking no damage to his main army. So right after this, he's threatening a really strong counterattack, and that's possibly one of the worst recall spots you could go for. You really, when you're recalling against a Terran, 99% of the time, 99% of the time you want to go either for the main or their third base, whichever is less defended. Now behind this, Laabuela has double Stargate going, and you know, definitely nowhere near max. We can see Terran is not quite at the economy he would want to be at. It's very usually a three-base kind of a three-basing Terran would be perpetually maxed in this position, and Voddy is at 170 supply, still kind of struggling to get up to the 200 supply mark. So this is where kind of that delayed third command center is coming into play. You can see Laabuela is expanding top left, has mid left, has a bunch of units, is expanding. His economy far outpaces the Terran economy, but of course PvT, like, you're always, you know, you have to deal with this Terran army that's barreling down the middle of the map.
Well, Laabuela is just trying to make it chaotic. While he gets attacked, he's going to counterattack. The standing army for both players is really strong. Another recall coming in. This, instantly EMP'd. So that's going to be a dead arbiter. What is that trigger from Laabuela? Is he just going to go for it? He is. There's no observer in this army, I don't think. There's a lack of zealots, so it's just goons versus a lot of tanks plus mines supporting it. Zealots get on top of 2 of the tanks, and all of a sudden 6 tanks become 4. But still, it's way too much for Laabuela to deal with, so he backs off. And behind this, he's losing his 3rd base. He's also potentially going to lose 4th and 5th base. He also can lay mines in front of this army, so the tanks really aren't under that much of a threat. Looks like Laabuela is going to try and set up for another counterattack, and this time might have more success. That is a huge army.
Laabuela is just going for the base trade style. One thing with Laabuela, as he comes in, this is going to easily clean up this Terran force. It's too slow and putting more mines down and sieging his tanks, so he's actually going to lose a lot of tanks. And the thing is, Laabuela, yeah, he's going to lose 1 base, but mid left is still mining, top left is still mining, and he still has all his production. Okay, mid left is not going to mine for a long time, but at this point, Voddy is basically going to lose his base, going to lose a lot of his production and his mining, though 12 o'clock is going to be okay. So I think Voddy can still kind of stabilize on top of this ramp. I was gonna say, just in general, Voddy actually pushing here, EMPing the Arbiter, so Laabuela just every game so far has not been able to use Arbiters to their maximum potency. Just no good stasises for these fights. But Voddy, is he committing too much? I don't know if this position is really good for him to kind of funnel all his units together. This is perfect for Laabuela as a couple production rounds pop out of the gateways. He has both armies coming in from massive stasis in the middle of the Terran army, and I think Laabuela is going to be able to clean this up. The supplies are actually really close, though. Terran does a lot of damage to these goons. It's going to be really close. I don't know who's ahead. Dude, these tank shots are massive, though.
Yeah, massive hits from the tanks, and it looked like it could potentially be okay for Laabuela, but the problem is look at the probe count. There's only 21 probes. He doesn't have any mining at bottom middle, none at his natural. If he had the probe count that Voddy has right now of 45, I would still be okay with his position, but because there's absolutely no econ for him, Voddy's up 20 supply. He's still got 4 bases. He still has the powerful +3 weapon upgrades. These 4 tanks coming out of Siege may end up wiping all of these goons too.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to do so much damage, and as you pointed out, Nyokin, the thing is, Voddy is so far ahead in worker count, and Voddy knows there's an expansion file left. He's going to, this DT, though, might be the big equalizer. He does get 4 kills, which is not irrelevant, but still, the economic gap is huge. Now, Laabuela is going to be forced to abandon top left. He's going to have to run those probes away. It's really crucial that he runs those probes away because they're really his only workers left. Now, Voddy is leaving himself open to counterattack. I don't think he really matters. He really cares too much because his factories are going to pop some units out to defend. Laabuela looks like he's going to try and go to the 12 o'clock instead. I wonder if there's only mines there, so if he just runs the zealots by to clean up this minefield, he's losing a lot of time. He needs to get in there before those SCVs mine too many resources and forces the command center to lift. So actually, this is a very good counterattack from Laabuela, and Laabuela, I think he managed to run his probes away. As I mentioned, they're in the middle of the map, kind of going back, so that's going to be really crucial. If Laabuela does not throw away all his units here, which it looks like, yeah, okay. GG.
GG coming in, so it's going to be Voddy moving on to face SPX in the Deciders match. A really crazy back and forth game. It looked like Laabuela might actually push up into the main and bust through, but something that I noticed in the majority of his fights is it was mostly goons. There was really not that many zealots to soak up mine hits. So because of that, not able to push up the ramp, but very close game, actually. One of the craziest games we've seen so far. And nicely done for Voddy. He's going to eliminate Peter from the tournament. And now we're going to have another TVT. We may actually get to see a TVT conclusion this time. We saw SPX disconnect, unfortunately, versus Dandy. But what do you think of this matchup coming up?
Yeah, SPX versus Voddy. I mean, it's gonna be, the thing is, SPX does have that win against Voddy earlier today, with that sick gaseous kind of hold of the 2 factory from Voddy. So I think confidence wise, probably the Voddy is gonna have that at the back of his mind that that didn't go too well. So, but at the same time, Voddy coming off, I mean, a decent victory. I don't know how he's going to feel about the games he just played, but playing long games like that, meanwhile, SPX kind of has had to wait around. I think it generally favors the player that has played the long games, though sometimes when they're too long like that, you kind of get tired out. So it really depends on kind of Voddy's mental state, obviously. But in general, probably SPX is a bit favored, but the game he played against Dandy, I mean, I think Voddy can easily win versus SPX.
Well, we'll see if the confidence of SPX can transition into a win, or if Voddy's going to bring it back and actually catch SPX this time right after a quick break.
Ramp, and the Sunken's doing work though. They're both equal supply. Eonzerg has one more drone, and Abuela has a position here up on the ramp. So look at this arc, beautiful arc from Abuela. He's going to completely destroy this attack from Eonzerg, and Abuela has a really good timing. Look how many lings. There's only one Sunken. Abuela is just chewing through Eonzerg's defenses. The Sunken's going to go down. Eonzerg has more lings coming in. The one Sunken finishes. It's going to be really close, Nyokin. You might die here. He has one Mutalisk out, though, so that's going to help with the DPS. And again, Abuela, he knows he has to go at some point, but Eonzerg is always in such a great defensive position. The Sunken taking so much of that ling DPS from Abuela's lings, and finally one Mutalisk is out. Now this Mutalisk, oh, he just GG's. Yeah.
This drone is very funny. He might actually try and Sunken rush here if he can get it down. But that drone, there it is.
Dude,
there's the
oh my
colony.
god. Abuela was doing such a good job. Abuela here, he has to pull drones, but if he defends this, he's going to be at a second hatchery advantage, and he'll be able to completely flood Julia out of this game. But he can't lose too many drones, because otherwise he won't have the economy to actually produce, and he's going to open himself up to basically counter attacking from Julia. So he still has to stay back. Now Julia's taking some trades here. I don't know if this makes sense, because he knows that basically Abuela is on 2 hatch production, so
it looks like actually Abuela.
like, he can't lose drones. He can't lose drones. If Julia loses any drone here, it's going to be massive for Abuela. And Abuela is just pushing through these lings. The Sunken is actually doing a lot of damage. But if he gets one drone goes down, if he gets another drone, this is basically game over. I mean, it's already game over, really. Look, 12 drones against 6 drones, 5 drones only. And now, basically, Julia can't make anything. Yeah, and he just leaves.
I see a lot of red going across the map. Oh, actually, there is a zealot intercept. Oh. 2 hits onto 3 hits onto the Marines. So
honestly, Nyokin, this rush is already completely denied by Bonnet. He's actually killing the Marines. So this is huge for Bonnet. Koget is so massively behind.
Well, for sure, Koget is way behind here, even though he didn't actually lose that SCV.
Oh, he's actually gonna lose the bunker if he doesn't pull another SCV. He pulls the SCVs. He's gonna lose the bunker. He has no tank behind this. I think he's gonna have to lift his natural, and Bonnet might actually just walk up Koget's rank. No, he just GG'd. He has no turrets, so the shuttle can be microed to basically Bonnet's heart, you know, to Bonnet's will. Doesn't look at Bonnet, and Bonnet has the best Reaver micro outside of Korea, bar none. I mean, he's gonna have free reign, like so many SCVs go down, and he actually kills the bunker in the meantime, so he's gonna go straight through the natural.
But he did get 3 tanks out, and the Reaver is kind of caught. That's a good scarab hit, but the tanks did split off. Reaver is still got a decent. Oh no! Now 2 tanks fall with 2 goons left over, and the Reaver is still alive.
And sometimes it can look like Terran can defend, but you gotta remember, like, he only has 1 turret, so these 2 Reavers can do whatever they want. It's so oppressive to play against. Oh my god, that Reaver didn't actually die. It's on 1 HP. Look at Bonnet's micro. It's absolutely bonkers. Kills both tanks, loses 1 Reaver finally. He killed so many tanks.
Oh no. No, don't look, Terran players. Don't look.
Oh my god, like, finds the sweet spot between the 2 tanks. What a god. And
now he can start thinking about taking a 3rd Nexus. He can. Okay, goodbye tank. Both of these are gonna die, and that one's still alive. It has 1 health.
Really, it's honestly just a matter of time until Ultra just decides he's had enough and leaves. GG.
Now remember, there's no armory, so okay, but he's got to avoid the turrets. But he has speed now. Tank already. I think he's stuck now. Where does he go? Marines are coming. There's turrets everywhere.
Koget, he's very strong TVP, but very okay. Oh my god, that's so many SCVs going down. So Koget's economy is in tatters, and for him, he definitely has to do a lot of game-ending damage here with this push. He's getting into a prime position, and Favorite is just going for a counterattack.
Look at Protoss just trying suicide through all the mines. He actually clears most of them out.
And now he's taking so much time getting into Koget's base, and now Koget actually gets to just keep his choke, which is super important. Meanwhile, Favorite is running back with a bunch of dragoons, but look, they have to funnel through this choke, and this choke is so tiny with the egg still up that there's just no way, and Favorite GG's.
Yeah, it was not bad, but he's got to be careful to not lose these Marines. Almost managing to pick off that weakened Marine. Look at that moving shot with an SCV. That's not something you see every day, especially with an SCV. But that's 3 Marines that just get wiped out by 1 Marine and 2 SCVs. And now Ultra's in big time trouble. Let's see how well he can trade. There we go. That's a good setup for Ultra, and he does come in, but it looks like Ultra went a bit far forward, and Koget has an overwhelming amount of Ultras now, and this might just be game over.
And yeah, Ultra's probably not going to die to this, but he might. There's so many units from Koget. I mean, this is high ground siege tanks, but Koget himself has 4 tanks. This is not good from Koget, though. He's going to lose all these tanks. All these units are going to go down.
But it looks like we do have an attempted bust out. There's not that many tanks, so he may actually be able to get out here.
And, you know, Ultra is still on that 2 base 5 factory production, so at this point, it doesn't matter. What's Ultra's compensation? He doesn't have drops. He doesn't have anything on Koget. Like, he's fighting this ground war, but Koget just has more production, more bases, and GG.
Find out who's going to be the second person to advance from Group E. It's going to be Voddy versus SPX. SPX took out Voddy in the initial stages of the group, but Voddy looking really, really solid versus Laabuela. And something that I was thinking about over the course of the break is, even though you're feeling confident, yeah, I beat this guy in the early stages of the game, how long has SPX been sitting and waiting? You know, these games were not short. So unless he was practicing on the ladder, Voddy's got his hands warmed up. He's got more games under his belt. So this time around, I think Voddy will definitely put up a much better showing.
Yeah, but at the same time, Voddy played very long games. You know, this was a long series. I mean, he was playing for at least an hour and a half straight, I think. So there is definitely the possibility that Voddy's also kind of tired. And these long games, man, they do stress, you know, they just tire you out. And then not only that, I mean, you know, if you go into something like a TVZ, you know, something like kind of very straightforward, that's okay. But after those long games, and now you have to play TVT, which might actually be longer than what you just played, you know, he might also not be feeling too good about that. So I think it could go either way. Obviously, if Voddy has, you know, it all depends on Voddy's stamina. If he's feeling good about it, then yeah, for sure, he's definitely in a better spot in terms of being warmed up and everything. But SPX, I mean, you know, I'm assuming, being kind of the veteran in this group, he probably was warming up, still playing a couple of games here and there, even against the computer, just keeping his hands going. So I don't think that's going to play too much of a factor in this game, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out. I think, again, we were talking about this earlier. I think SPX is a slight favorite here, but it could go either way.
Yeah, well, our game is ready, so let's find out who's it going to be, IRK SPX or IRK Voddy, making it out in second place of Group E. So in the top left in the green, we have our Russian Terran, also representing IRK. It is SPX.
The top right in the peach, I guess, his teammate, it is Voddy. So, I mean, we've seen TVT on Optimizer before, but have we seen IRK Voddy versus IRK SPX Optimizer?
No, this is the first time we've seen SPX in quite a while, and really only the second time I've seen Voddy, other than the Race Wars. Now, we always talk about Optimizer. I think this is one of the matchups where the gas actually is the big factor. TVT, really important to get up a lot of gas, whether it's to build more factories or whether it's to build a ton of tanks. Super important. So we'll see how both of these players react to playing on Optimizer.
Do you have any ideas?
No.
Like, do you have any ideas how you'd use this gas off the top of your head? When?
Potentially, if I was doing like some type of weird, funky one base build and then transitioning into 2-port Wraith, like what we saw SPX go for, except on Reap the Storm, except instead of going for Proxy Starport, I would go for like a second factory, because then the other Terran player most likely is building Tank Vulture, right? But then if you just show up with like 2-port Wraith with Cloak, you can use that extra gas to pump out the Wraiths from the secondary Starport. So I mean, something like that could be a potential. I mean, it's obviously very gimmicky. It's like a one-time thing, but in a tournament, it doesn't matter. If it gets you a victory, you know, a win is a win. So something like that, I think, could be good. It could be good for, let's say you're going for like some type of 9-factory bust on 2 bases, but you need D matrix. You could also use the extra 1,000 gas for getting out a couple of vessels.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird, right? Like, I think on other matchups it's a bit clearer what you want to use it for, and I think in this matchup it's a bit more dependent. I don't think you could really plan for it. I feel like maybe you just kind of take it when you need it. You know what I mean? Unless you have some, like you said, some kind of one-base play. But I don't know. It is an interesting map to think about. It's interesting to think about how you would optimize your builds with it. But we'll have to see. It looks like Voddy there already pulling SCVs off gas. They're both pulling SCVs off gas now. SPX pulling all his SCVs off gas. It's slightly inaccurate to pull all your SCVs off. I mean, at the end of the day, they're both doing the same thing. And if you're asking me why is SPX pulling all his SCVs while Voddy's pulling just 2 of his SCVs off gas, I would just say, well, I think in general, Voddy's a bit better off in this situation. Like, SPX is going to have... Oh, but he's actually putting SCVs back on gas, maybe prematurely. He has enough minerals for a command center.
Yeah, he's going to put down the command center. He is going to go straight into add-on, which is... Okay, Voddy's going to match the add-on. Now, something that you can do when you continue to mine gas is you can go into Starport instantly because you actually have the gas. Whereas if SPX was to go Starport, it would take a little bit more time to build up that extra gas. So something as a Terran player is if you see no mining of the gas, you can be pretty sure that this is going to be factory follow-ups. Whereas Voddy has the option here to not necessarily go for it. The command centers are identical, so really there was no benefit to SPX pulling off of gas just yet, unless I'm missing something. I'm curious where the gas is going for Voddy because he's approaching. Oh, it looks like we may just have, you know, the tank follow-up. Okay, maybe not, because we actually have an upgrade coming in, which is very, very fast.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what we're gonna see here from Voddy, but SPX going for the 2 factory there. It looks like it's also a tank. It's taking forever. So both players actually going for tank openings. Just surprising because a lot of the times, obviously in this matchup, as we were talking about earlier, you see Vulture openings predominantly early game, though I would argue not as kind of a staple as they used to be, at least not on the ladder and not in my experience against a lot of the Korean Terrans. A lot of them do like to just get a couple vultures but just go straight into tanks, or actually a lot of Koreans open very weirdly on ladder, so don't worry about it. But yeah, SPX going for that tank vulture, and Voddy, he has a starport with this, right? Or does he just...
There's no starport, which is why it's a bit confusing, because I was looking, where's he going to put his gas? Instead, it looks like he just rushed out tanks in potentially siege mode, which I think is a pretty good move, because this is what SPX does, is he loves being aggro in the initial stages of the game, whether it's 3 vultures, 3 marines, or something like this, 3 vultures, 2 marines, and 1 tank. He's always making moves like this. But because he's got his second factory up, even though he doesn't have siege just yet, he's already got a positional advantage over Voddy. And also, if he gets mines, it's going to be very hard to break out, and he still has his racks alive, so he still has vision. So I'm really loving SPX's position.
Yeah, but at the same time, he only has 2 tanks. His siege mode isn't going to be quite there on time. Okay, he does finish siege mode, so yeah. The thing is, I mean, this is terrible for Voddy. If he just gives up this position for free, he's basically going to be in the soft contain. Voddy kind of recognizing that he needs to go into air ASAP, getting his 3rd gas actually really fast, so we're going to see him kind of inject some gas, pushing it up, but he doesn't have vision with these tanks just yet, so it's going to be hard to kind of kill SPX's contain. He does have the opportunity, though, because it is 4 tanks against 2 tanks, and these vultures don't have mines, but vultures, okay, as I say that, they actually go down. So at this point, I mean, if Voddy is very clean, he could possibly kill these tanks, but still no vision yet. He would have to get in range of the tanks and kind of sack a tank, but now there's 3 tanks, so impossible to push through that.
Well, SPX is already running away with this game, I think, because he's starting to take bottom left, and that's going to be another 2 more gases for him. So this is something we didn't talk about, is when you take another main, you instantly go up to 5 gases. Now, sure, 2 of them are going to deplete very quickly, but that really does put you at like 3.5 gas once they're depleted. So that's a big advantage to take another main. Now, you always have to be careful when you make a move like this, because it opens you up to a potential bust. And we see that Voddy is a little bit farther ahead on his factory timing, but not anything super crazy. Oh, is he going to go for it? He's actually going to try. The SCVs drew a bunch of fire there, really nicely done. But unfortunately, none of his tanks are in range except for 1 of them.
Wow, yeah, that was really close to being really good for Voddy, because SPX, most of his tanks kind of shot onto the SCVs, but just not in range. And I mean, the longer this goes, now there's literally no possibility for him. No, he can't go for this. This is so risky. There's so many tanks there, but actually SPX, his Rax is out of position, and he's giving so many shots away to Voddy for free. But you can see, despite that advantage, it really doesn't matter. He still keeps this alive. And finally, Voddy, the thing is, when you go for these contains as SPX, you do open yourself up to these dropship plays, and there's 2. I mean, the thing is, right, when you're containing like this, you have a couple options. One is to make a bunch of factories to reinforce your contain, or 2 is to make starports to prevent dropships from happening. If you make starports, your contain isn't that strong because you don't have as many units, but if you make the factories, your contain is stronger, but this dropship is going to do a lot of damage. So you can see SPX actually chose to go for 5 factories himself, putting himself outside of the map, basically out on the map. And Voddy with 4 Goliaths gonna do so much damage, economic damage to SPX's mineral line here, that the thing is, SPX can't actually abandon his position. So this is so annoying to deal with. First, he can't lose this drop though. If Voddy loses this drop, it's gonna be massive, because now, because he still has this drop alive, suddenly he's gonna have 2 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops, And this contain is rapidly losing relevance.
Here comes Voddy. He's going to go for an SCV drop on top of the tanks and try and bust out. He drew SPX back with that Goliath drop. The SCVs actually deal a lot of damage to these tanks, and he's going to be able to bust through very easily, but he loses quite a few tanks himself. What looked like was oh wow, didn't even see those 2 tanks at the top. What looked like was going to be a favorable trade for Voddy actually ends up backfiring. But I want to point out something that I did see that I didn't realize is that at top left, the main, you know, you can put tanks on the high ground up there. So if we got to critical mass drops like Dandy did, and you set up 4 tanks and then just elevator the other 4 drop ships in, all of a sudden this drop becomes almost unkillable because you have tanks just sitting on high ground. So that might be something that Voddy looks to exploit. Another drop coming in. We don't know if it's SCVs or Goliaths. Looks like there's Goliaths there. And he's going to try and bust out, but that's 4 tanks already in siege mode. And this trade is not going to go well for Voddy.
Yeah, this is disastrous. I was going to say Voddy looked like he's going to actually push through, but the fact that he fails to bust through this contain, and you can see the 3 gas playing in this game. Voddy has 4 add-ons at a time with drops at a time where you basically only have 2, maybe 3 add-ons. So huge tank production here, and has a science facility and everything. So you can see the optimizer definitely playing into the build orders. But I mean, Voddy is just so far behind, as you said, Dan. He has SPX has bottom left running. He's gonna have access to an extra gas. The thing is, he has no units here, and I think maybe Voddy randomly scanned bottom left. He definitely knows there's an expansion here because the drops are flying straight to it, so he's going to be able to basically shut this expansion down, which is huge because now Voddy has mid-right going. SPX just lost bottom left, so Voddy's ahead of base. And suddenly the tables have turned. This is what happens when you go for ninja expands like this. If they get found out, it just gets so punishing.
Yeah, and Voddy is doing what Voddy does best. He's just everywhere. Drop going into the main. Only 2 tanks at bottom left. That's not scary. Now, this 2 tank drop is a bit iffy. You know, we already saw the linebackers deal with tanks by themselves pretty much in earlier games. But so far, the tanks are dealing a decent amount of damage. Meanwhile, Voddy's trying to get outside of his base at the same time, but it looks like he's going to be denied for now. The tank is finally going to go down. I don't see the armory spinning for SPX, so I'm not too sure what his actual upgrades are. But Voddy just really cannot get outside of his base. But with so many dropships having already been built, I'm expecting to see a mass elevator or a mass drop to top left.
Yeah, I mean, look, Voddy's still trying to push out here, but it's just looking like a... Oh, wait, actually, what was I actually had the stream open, and we were like, you know, guys, we're actually running to like a decent amount of delay between the streams, so I had that open for a second. But yeah, I mean, this is actually looking pretty decent for Voddy despite being in this contain, because he has that third base going. The drops are out. And the thing is, like, in this matchup, once one player commits to air, the other player has to follow, because you gain such a massive advantage in terms of having mobility out on the map. It looks like SPX is following. He did see those drops, and he's on an intercept course with these wraiths, and if these 4 wraiths actually kill the drops, it's going to be such a massive advantage for SPX.
Yeah, he intercepts all 3 of the dropships, and they can't unload because they're on dead space. One of them unloads, but really nicely done by Voddy to pick, or by SPX to pick off 2 out of the 3 dropships. That's going to save the day. Both players have opened up their third base, so they're going to start taking it. And as I was discussing earlier, what would I use the second gas for? Race. We were talking about it being on 1 base, but SPX using it to do it on 2 bases or 3 bases, and now all of these tanks are isolated and most likely going to go down.
Yeah, this is a really good pick off from SPX, but most importantly is that he used those wraiths to kill the drops, and now suddenly Voddy has to once again deal with this contain. He can't just ignore it by flying dropships around the map. So Voddy in a very precarious situation. Again, though, he does have his middle right third base mining way faster. Man. Nice timing here actually from Voddy. There's so many units out, and SPX didn't actually, because he was kind of caught out of position to defend those dropships, he doesn't have enough units reinforcing this bust, and Voddy just pushes through.
Yeah, I don't think Voddy realizes his advantage yet because he has one sieged up as if he can't push through, but he has so many tanks. There's only 4 for SPX, and I think he could hook around this top side of the map and actually set up and contain himself outside of SPX's base. Top left is an isolated base. There's no defense there. Wraiths are trying to save the day, but there's already a couple Goliaths here, so they should be able to be taken down relatively easily. I don't see a 4th base going up for Voddy at bottom right anywhere, or top right. Maybe he's floating to top right now. But if he can shut down top left, that would give him a crippling position.
Yeah, I mean,
look at this. SCVs versus tanks.
Yeah, SCVs actually completely demolished tanks, but Voddy, I think Voddy was the one that had who has +2 on their tanks? I'm not sure if it's SPX or Voddy. Yeah, SPX does not have +1, so Voddy has a massive upgrade advantage, and Voddy's upgrades are actually on time. SPX's are the ones that are a bit delayed here, and +2 is such a massive upgrade in this matchup because the tanks start two-shotting each other basically, and if one player has +2 and the other player has +1, I mean, you can guess that's not going to go well for the +1 player, but at the same time, SPX kind of securing his base, and we can see finally Optimizer. I haven't seen any TVTs on this map, and it's going to be kind of one of those split maps. Some interesting pathing here though from Voddy, and SPX has to quickly reposition his tanks before Voddy gets into position. He is there, but like, is it going to be fast enough? And there's Wraiths out in the middle of the map, but the Valkyries there to clean them up, and Voddy gets repelled, I think, at SPX's 4th base here. So the thing is though, look at these gas geysers that are kind of outside facing their opponents. So Voddy is actually getting into a position where, yeah, he can't deny the minerals from being mined. He can siege the command center, so it doesn't matter, but he could also just deny the gas there. So Voddy, with a big win here, gets to deny SPX's base. The thing is, that was SPX's 4th base, and nice ledge. So these ledges, man, on this map, like, the first time you see this map, this is the last thing you think about, but the more games we see on this map, we can see just how important they are.
Yeah, he takes out 2 tanks for 2 tanks, and he says, yoinks, I'm going to take that base also. So that's going to be 5 base Voddy versus SPX, who's on 3 base, but he's going to be mined out in his main and natural. So really huge swing of the game right there. Voddy just out positioning SPX. The contain from SPX was great, but just outmaneuvering SPX all over the place. And now also by taking this base, he has access to that high ground. And there he goes, loading up. And I see an armory over there. If it's spinning, that's going to be a canceled upgrade.
Oh man, dude, look at the supplies now. And Voddy is so far ahead at this point. Voddy's playing out of his mind. This is not surprising to me in the least. Like I said, I mean, SPX obviously the favorite in terms of his past tournament results and just kind of his being an established player. But Voddy is definitely up there with him and with Dandy in TVT 100%. You can see it here. Voddy is completely kind of pressuring SPX into such a difficult position. He's up so much supply, and he's just constantly reinforcing this drop, and he's gonna have the ledge to work with. They're gonna be interested to see if he actually drops some tanks on top of that ledge. That would be really sick. But he has everything, man. He has Valkyries to counter the Wraiths, rebuild drops, so he can keep pressuring the map. Voddy's TVT is looking very impressive.
Yeah, is this TVT, is this Lost Temple, or is this Optimizer? Because there's a reason that people stop playing Lost Temple. It's because these ledges are just absolutely crippling. That's going to be another tank going down. I think once this tank goes down, that's going to be GG. There it is. SPX taps out, and it's going to be Voddy taking game 1. So now he's in the driver's seat to actually just make it out in 2nd place.
Yeah, man, dude, that was actually really impressive by Voddy. I think he outclassed SPX that game without a doubt. Just played overall better. And going into game 2, I guess we have our answer from before. Voddy's definitely going to be feeling really confident, and it doesn't look like his earlier series against Laabuela has been really taxing him, because he played this long game. I mean, you know, it was a macro game TVT, not the longest of games that we've seen, but he played it immaculately and basically outplayed SPX. So I think going into this game 2, I'm feeling like Voddy is a bit of a favorite.
Yeah, and when I played Voddy on the ladder a few days ago, that was the one thing I noticed, is that even if he didn't have the unit advantage, he was able to get into good position and outmaneuver you. You really cannot let your guard down versus this guy, because when you scan and the scan fades away, he's probably moving his army somewhere else to get into a better position. And I love the multitask that drop the top left to draw units out of position, and then drop bottom left, draw those units out of position, and then bust out. And we were talking about where's the gas going to go. Where's the gas going to go in the TVT matchup? And we found the answer. It went into that +2 upgrade. He had it for a much longer time over SPX.
Yeah, he got that +2 so fast, and not just that, he was on like 4 add-ons on his factory. So just in general, I think Voddy was playing that map much better. Just in general, man, Voddy played that game much better than SPX did. But I mean, SPX again, strong, really strong player, strong tournament player. He's definitely been in this position before. There's definitely a chance for him to bring back the series down 0-1, but this is do or die. He's going to have to win this game or else Voddy advances. But again, dude, just such an impressive performance by Voddy. And I'm interested to see, of course, after the first game, the loser gets to pick the map, but the winner bans a map. So we'll have to see what the second map is going to be. Now, off the top of my head, I mean, what do you think we're going to see, dude? Like, could it be Polypoid?
I think more than likely we're going to see Sylphid or Polypoid. There it is,
Yeah.
Sylphid. It's just in the ladder for so long. It's one of the most popular maps. I don't think people really think there's much of an imbalance on positions on this particular map. So it's no shock to me to see this. So we're going to get into game 2. If SPX loses here, his tournament is over and Voddy will move on. Let's see if Voddy can make it happen. So in the top middle, in the yellow, down 0-1, it is SPX.
And bottom right, in the gray Terran, it is the Swedish Wonder Boy, Voddy. Yeah. Dude.
I actually have a feeling somebody's going to 14 command center, and I think they're not going to get away with it. So I wonder who it's going to be. I just got an inkling that that's coming, but
nah, I don't.
You don't. You're not going to make the confident call there. You're just going to wait and see.
I mean, if someone 14 command centers, it's going to be SPX, right?
Maybe.
I don't think Voddy's gonna. I think Voddy's gonna play standard. I think if someone pops out something weird, it's gonna be SPX. It could actually. You know what? You might be right.
Well, SPX did go for a move that I was expecting him to do versus Dandy, which is the aggressive Vulture Marine play, but it was after a tank. So that might be the go-to move this time, because that's generally what he would do versus me. I almost never played a game versus SPX where he was not aggressive with his Vultures and Marines. Well, he's not the one going 14C, and neither is Voddy. I can't believe you predicted that they were going to go 14C. How crazy are you, Mihai? Of course it's just going to be standard.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't believe I let you trick me like that, Naokin. I was gonna say, I mean, I felt it for a second, dude. I felt it in my body for a second. I was like, Voddy's gonna play a standard game. He's been playing standard throughout. He's feeling confident. And then I just looked at SPX and I'm like, you know what, that first game they played, he went for that weird gasless expand. I wouldn't putting 13 command center past him, but looks like they're both going for the same build here now. On Sylphid, because there's no ramp here, what's really popular on the ladder is the 2 factory Vulture timing attack into glides. I wonder if we're gonna see that.
Oh, I know that is a popular build. I remember Artosis telling me about it like a year ago. I'm like, dude, what?
Yeah.
What is this? This is not a thing. If I just build a bunker, do I just win?
But you think he saw it back then, or did he actually?
No. He saw. Well, he might have come up with, but he definitely told me about it like a long time ago. I was like, dude, I just built a bunker. And he's
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah,
not
but you
very
don't
good
know,
if the
but you
bunker
don't know, but you don't know that it's Goliath. That's the thing, is they can go vultures and it doesn't necessarily mean Goliath. In fact, when I was playing 2-fact, I would always go command center. So there's nothing that really tells you what the actual follow-up is. Now we see that SPX did pull completely off of gas again. Voddy didn't. And both players are just going to go for an expansion as usual.
Yeah, usually this is not where the build deviations occur. I mean, sometimes one player has more gas. Again, SPX likes pulling all his SVs off gas. Voddy keeps one on gas. I think it's better to keep one on gas because, look, now, I mean, Voddy gets his command center slightly slower, but he's up at 80 supply, or 80 supply, 60 gas, 70 gas, which is important because now he can get a second factory faster. He can get everything faster. So, you know, if you guys are Terran players watching at home, definitely I think keep one SCV on the gas. It's not that big of a deal, but it is just slightly better than pulling all your SCVs off. And like you see, he already has the add-on. He's going straight for. I actually wasn't paying attention to the minerals or to the resources, but it looks like a vulture.
Yeah, so we have add-on for SPX. Last game, we also saw the add-on in the delayed second factory. Still no second factory out for Voddy. Still no starport anywhere. Everything looks like what we saw last game, which was a rushed siege mode, which really I don't ever see on the ladder. I, of course, see 2-fact siege mode, but not 1-fact siege mode. Such a weird opener, but is that going to be 3-fact for SPX? It looks like it is. So again, Voddy is just confident with building tanks. Meanwhile, SPX is the one that wants to get aggro. Now, because Voddy was on 1-fact for so long, I wonder if 3-fact is the magic number to actually bust through. Remember, SPX last game was only on 2-fact and didn't want to go for it, but maybe with 3, it will trigger him to go in.
Yeah, SPX's build is a bit weird. Usually you see the second factory finished by now and the third factory come in a bit late, not both factories at the same time. So, but at the end of the day, it's still functionally going to be 3 factories, vultures, and SPX, I think he actually has a starport. I'm not sure, because usually when you get this, it doesn't look like. I thought for a second he had starport, maybe at the top right of his base. Voddy did. 4th factory for SPX, so really committing heavily on these vultures. But getting this 4th factory, Nyokin, you definitely need to cut SCVs for this. And the thing is, okay, so there's no starport, just 2 factories there. The thing is, getting more factories is good if the other player is also making vultures, but if they're making tanks, nah.
I think this is a bit of a mistake from Voddy because he's moving out at the same time as SPX. Now he's going to catch these vultures, sure, but if there's speed like there is right now, he can go for an instant counterattack, and this is one way to even up the differential in SCVs, because as Terran players, we both know there's massive cuts going on. 4 vultures. Actually, he's going to turn around. He's too scared. So SPX doesn't get any damage done with his vultures. He doesn't have mines. He does have speed, but 3 tanks with rallied vultures versus 4-fact vultures, just that's it. That should be an easy victory for tank vulture, as long as the counterattack from the vultures don't do decimating amounts of damage to your SCV line.
Honestly, Voddy just slap down a 3rd command center here. I don't think you go for an attack because it's just so high variance. You don't know where mines are. If you attack SPX's base, you leave yourself open to getting countered. And the thing is, you know SPX is on mass vulture, but these types of vultures, especially from the opening, I mean, he killed a couple vultures for free. They're not going to break 4 siege tanks. Voddy playing very aggressively, though. I don't like this positioning. It's a bit too far forward, but I mean, he's not going to get punished for it, actually, and this is fine. And I like I do totally agree, though, with Voddy's play right here. Going for that 3rd command center. SPX, not much he can do about this except expand himself. But the problem that SPX has in this position is that he needs to get his tank count going, because if he doesn't, Voddy's going to hit a sick, nasty timing. And you can see, actually, SPX going into 3 add-on tank, which is definitely what he needs to do. But his command center is going to be nowhere in sight.
Yeah, so the positioning of the tanks from Voddy is intentional. He wants to also secure mid-right at the same time. He doesn't want, or at least have access to it. He doesn't want to get contained where mid-right is cut off from him. So this tank positioning, definitely very good. There was a moment where I was a little worried that 11 vultures or whatever runs into the natural and there's one tank for defense. But because that hasn't happened, SPX is in a bit of trouble. Third command center already up. Sure, he's going to be able to pump out a lot of tanks, just like Voddy, and Voddy is lacking on the factory count. But I already like Voddy's positional advantage. This is something he consistently does, always tries to get into a better position and then just wait for his moment. Now he's going to start building up his factory count, start building that starport, I think. He also got his armory fast again, so I imagine his +1 weapon should be pretty far along by now.
Yeah, and this is what I was hoping to see from Voddy. Just from playing him on the ladder, I could tell he's a very strong TVT player. I think definitely one of the better non-Korean players that I've played. And I mean, I play, you and me both, Mike, when we play a lot of Korean Terrans, there's a very stark difference between kind of that playstyle and like the non-Korean playstyle. But Voddy, every time I play him, he's definitely playing very solid TVT. I think sometimes his builds aren't always like totally optimized out, for example, but like in terms of just his play in the game, his positional play, his strategic play, it always makes sense. This 2-port though is really interesting, but at the same time, I really like it because he's playing such a slow-paced game. He's playing such a positional game. Look, like you said, Nyokin, he's set up to take this mid-right base. He doesn't need to be out on the map. He's going to be comfortable for 4 bases here on his side of the map, on the bottom right side of the map. And so instead of going for a big factory flood to just attack, he's going for 2-port. Now, is that being too greedy, though? Because look at how many units SPX has.
Yeah, this is one of the drawbacks of going Wraith after taking bases in going pure tank, is that you just don't have any actual units. There's only 3 tanks here, and he's gonna have to re-siege in position all these other tanks that he has out in the center of the map. Luckily for him, none of these tanks actually shot the vultures, but look how fast and easily SPX pushes through. Now there are no Goliaths, and he cannot reinforce with Goliaths because the tanks are sitting there, but there's just so much DPS on these tanks and vultures, he's gonna eliminate so many SCVs.
Yeah, but at the same time, SPX is definitely going to lose this army. He doesn't have anything to deal with these raids. He does see the raid, so after this, he's going to be able to go into tank Goliath production. He does lose a lot. He kills a lot of SCVs, gets into siege mode to just target down SCVs. If he kills a bunch of SCVs, I mean, maybe this is going to be worth it, but all in all, I mean, a lot of SCVs went down, but the thing is, SPX threw away all his units, and remember, Voddy's 3rd base was so fast. His 4th base is already finished. SPX barely finished his 3rd base. So all in all, I think Voddy can afford to take that economic damage, and SPX, instead of kind of putting himself into it's hard because he didn't have Goliaths, right? He had a very narrow timing there to bust that position. I think it probably would have been better for him to just bust the tank line that was sieged up near Voddy's 3rd and 4th base, because at least there it's easier to reinforce with Goliaths, and also you can kind of kill mid-right and possibly deny the high run expansion, but definitely mid-right. So unfortunately, SPX kind of missed his target there, despite that looking like a very threatening attack. And now Voddy up 4 bases, up a bunch of just cloak wraiths, wrecking havoc everywhere. SPX is gonna have such a nightmare. It's gonna be such a nightmare for him to deal with these wraiths, man.
Yeah, the Goliaths are going to have to balance being in the center of the map and also dealing with the race in the main. So this is the power of the race, is that they're just so mobile, and I don't see any Goliaths coming out. That upgrade is also probably range. It looks like it's just now kicked in, so that's a massive upgrade for SPX. But a full SCV pull, and if we look at top left, that base is not up and running. It's up, but there's no SCVs actually mining over there. So Voddy's on like 4 base. I can see all of the bases up and running right now. Remember, he also rushed his armory, so he's gonna have +2 pretty soon if he doesn't already have it. And that's again gonna be a massive power spike. But SPX, his arc of tanks is massive. So for now, the game's gonna move on, but I still like Voddy's position quite a bit.
Oh, Voddy's is in such a dominating position. Yeah, SPX has some good kind of stuff on the map, but you can notice in the bottom left side of the map, it's not like on the middle of this map is so open and there's so much ground to cover that you can't just kind of siege across the map and completely block the other player out unless you have such a massive advantage. But these wraiths are gonna pick off stray tanks here and there. They're gonna get their value off. Meanwhile, Voddy in his base is actually adding more factories, so getting ready to transition into more of a ground-based army. SPX's bases are just so late. You can see in the supply difference that Voddy is significantly ahead, kills the Goliath for free, and now he's going to be able to completely clean this tank line here, and that's going to open up a possible attack route into SPX's natural. You can see Voddy already in position to capitalize on this. There's so many tanks moving up to SPX's natural, and SPX is not reacting with the rest of his tanks out in the middle of the map, and Voddy's going to get into killer position.
I think this is actually just lights out now. A little bit of an overextension there, but still 5 tanks are just sitting outside of Voddy's natural. That's going to be another tank going down. And what do you do from SPX's point of view? Because we know he pumped out a lot of factories, but I don't think he has a starport yet. He definitely doesn't have wraiths himself. He definitely doesn't have any dropships. So now you've got somebody sitting right outside of your base. He has no anti-air. There's no way for him to reinforce the middle of the map. Here comes SPX. He knows what the situation is. It's dire. He's desperately trying to break out. SCVs get on top of the tanks, but actually he might actually get out for now because Voddy's not reinforcing just yet.
Yeah, but I mean the damage is done. Look, SPX is so far behind the supply. He's basically 60 supply against 130 supply, and Voddy, importantly, he's trading those tanks out for SPX's tanks, but he keeps his wraiths alive, and now Voddy has enough production to make basically the same amount of tanks SPX makes, but SPX needs to also be making Goliaths. So this is so bad for SPX. I mean, this is very, very hard to come back from. Like, he's not even mining from one of his bases, so he's functionally only on 3 base. Meanwhile, Voddy getting his 5th base up and going, and Voddy just in such a commanding position. Look, SPX needs to keep making tanks, but there's so many wraiths here that SPX actually needs to make a bunch of Goliaths also, so that these wraiths don't kill his tanks for free, and it's just so much for SPX to deal with.
Yeah, and there's just so much production now for Voddy. Remember, he's on 4 gas income. He's got his 5th base up and running now, so there's gonna be 5 gas. Just absolutely insane econ, doubling the supply of SPX. He's got more factories than SPX, despite having 4 in the early stages. It's now Voddy with like 10 factories, and SPX knows that it's over, and he taps out, and it's going to be Voddy moving on in 2nd place from Group E.
Yeah, dude. All right, I'm not gonna lie, but now that the results are in, because I think when the results aren't in, people are looking at this on paper, it's kind of harder to make these judgments. But my gut feeling was that Voddy was actually better than SPX and Dandy and TVT, like not substantially, but like a decent amount. And I think today, at least after this group and after watching all these games, including the Dandy versus SPX game, I think there's no doubt in my mind that Voddy actually has much better TVT than SPX and Danny. And overall, I think Voddy actually put out the best performance in this group. I think maybe his TVP looked a bit shoddy against Laabuela, because to be completely honest with you, I really wasn't impressed with how Laabuela played today. Really unfortunate. I mean, maybe it was tournament nerves or what have you. So I think maybe Voddy still has some areas to work on in terms of specifically his TVP. I haven't seen his TVZ yet, but for sure his TVT is by far the best of the 3 Terrans today.
Yeah, it looked really good. He hit +2 really quickly. TVT is all about position, and he definitely knew how to use his position to his advantage. You saw as soon as he started using his race, instantly moved his tanks. There was no delay. There was no, SPX is going to be able to set up another line and, no. Instantly set it up, made sure that SPX had no wiggle room to really do anything. There was only one moment in the game where I was a bit worried, where SPX made the huge move into the natural, and we saw him go all the way to the main and try and end the game. But other than that, Voddy looked really solid, and he's going to move on and be the second player to move on from Group E. So that is going to be it for us today. Of course, we want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, Liquipedia, Blizzard Esports Fund, the viewers, and all of our Patreon supporters. If you guys have not followed us on Twitter and Twitch, make sure you do that. You can follow me. You can follow Gypsy. You can follow Zero. We're all on Twitter. Maybe don't follow me because I don't ever tweet. But Gypsy, maybe you want to follow him. Zero, you want to follow him. But
definitely follow us on Twitch. If you're gonna follow us on
follow us on Twitch.
Follow us on Twitch, because I stream a lot, Nyokin streams a lot. Zero well, everyone's on this channel anyway, so you guys already know to follow Zero. But make sure you're following the stream. That's for sure. And make sure that you're always there for BSL. But yeah, I don't know, Nyokin, you got anything else to say? Maybe we can bring up the Patreons, right?
Yeah, we can bring up the Patreons and give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. If you want to support BSL financially, consider becoming a Patreon, whether it's $2 support or $100 support. You want to be up there with Star Lover. We appreciate all of the support for BSL. It goes towards not just the main tournament, but other tournaments that we already had previously casted, such as the Race Wars, the ladder tournaments, the Chobo tournaments. Like, everything really does make a difference in BSL. So we have our bombastic general, the one and only Star Lover at the bottom, and our main sponsors, Blizzard Esports Fund and Liquipedia. Star Lover at $100. We've got Andre Strevkowski. Sorry, it's very blurry. It's hard to read it correctly. Gruglog Striker at $50. Bombastic Major, Mad Catz Fury Road, Scott Wallfield, LML, Lingen Pump, Chalk, and everybody else that is a Patreon supporter. Thank you so much. And of course, we got to shout out Make Computer Do Things. They are responsible for the first person VOD that we are able to bring for you. Something that I was really excited about. I'm really looking forward to seeing some epic battles. Watch a lockdown mid-flight would be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm excited because lockdown, everybody theorizes like lockdown. It's viable in TV.
It's just one game. It's just one game today.
But we may see it again. We may see nukes. Somebody like Voddy who can micro that well and also macro well. That's somebody that, I'm always looking for the next fantasy, because for me, fantasy is the ultimate player. He's the ultimate player. I think he's actually better than Flash. I'll be on record saying that. I love how fantasy plays, and Voddy's reminding me of play like that. Sure, lockdown, fantasy didn't use, but the micro's incredible. The positioning was great. He looked really impressive. So I'm actually really rooting for Voddy, not just because he's Terran, but because he actually did really impress me quite a bit today.
Yeah, like I said, man, Voddy's TVT was a 100%. Just watching those games, I can tell you guys, Gypsy stamp of approval. That was stronger TVT than the rest of the group. 100, even better than Dandy's TVT. I know Dandy also won against SPX, but I think Dandy also looked a bit off against SPX also. But Voddy completely, honestly, he smashed SPX. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He just outplayed him. So very nice. But again, I do want to see kind of more solid TVP from him. I think versus Laabuela, he showed a lot of weakness. So hopefully he gets some more practice in for that. We'll see what group he ends up in once we do the group draws. I think the group draws are going to be tomorrow, right? After the last two groups. No?
It's tomorrow. Oh yeah, it's going to be tomorrow. I forgot that we're going to be casting tomorrow because this has been so long. It's already Sunday for me. It's 8 a.m. on Sunday. So tomorrow is going to be Group G and H. We've got the NA Hopes and Jaeyoon, Striker, and Dragon. And in that group, looking to make a splash is Casper. And then in Group H, we've got True Touch, Kare, Babo, and Medino. So a lot of Zergs, a lot of Terrans tomorrow, something that you don't really see in the foreign scene. Mostly you see Protoss players. So that should be pretty epic. So I think that's going to be it for us today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. You don't want to miss it.